It doesn't sound like we're having an out of context conversation that nobody will ever hear the beginning of.
Happy Mother's Day
We are not doing a Mother's Day special
tomorrow.
tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll do a Mother's Day special with our mother. Zzz, cough. Jordan,
Mother, I.
Jordan, are you ready to?
Happy Mother's Day.
We are not
All
doing a
right,
Mother's Day.
sound is working.
Excellent. Okay. Also, I checked with Jake, and it is in fact the Arate Media Pantheon. Although he said if I said network, no one would be upset.
Okay.
All right. Okay, let's start the show in 3, 2, 1. This podcast is brought to you by the Arate Media Pantheon. Please head to aratemedia.org to check out all sorts of podcasts from our great friends, some of which we've even been on. No, you know what? Let's do that again. I didn't like that, Jordan. And it felt unnatural. Bad start.
We've been on some of them. You mean some of their podcasts,
So
right?
I hated it. I hated it as I said it. Let's do this again in 3, 2. The Spotify people don't hear that. That is YouTube exclusive, baby. In 3, 2, 1. This podcast is brought to you by the Arate Media Pantheon. Please head to aratemedia.org to check out many podcasts from our great friends. And if you would like to start your own podcast, they can provide you the resources and tools to do so there. That is aratemedia.org. ARETE media.org. On with the show, Jordan.
On with the show, Justin.
Flawless intro that Spotify will not hear. Flawless, Jordan. Flawless. For those of you who are listening on Spotify, I tried to do something different, and I landed flat on my face. And like a good podcast partner always should, Jordan fully supported me. He didn't at all let me fall flat on my face.
No, not at all.
He was.
I
Totally,
was 100%. I was 100% supportive.
in fact, he was the one who was like, "That's bad. You shouldn't do that. You should do a second take." It was his good instincts.
Exactly. I'm perfect.
With that, welcome back to the Spur of the Moment podcast, everybody. I am your host, Justin Spurr, and joined with me at the hip, as always, is my forever podcast host. It's the incomparable Jordan, everyone.
I am pretty incomparable. True.
No one compares. Today, with news, we're going to talk about what Superman looks like. What does Superman look like? He looks like Superman. Spoiler alert. We're going to talk about...
Well, hey, there's a first time for everything.
We're going to talk about Normal Man, David Zaslav, and what he thought about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Whoops. We're going to talk about who's playing Galactus. Spoiler alert, you haven't heard of him. And apparently Andy Serkis is directing a new Golum movie. And then later, it's science fiction time. Welcome to the science fiction special. We're going to be talking about some science fiction stuff, including probably what is going to be a big, long, deep dive into something kind of special. Especially terrible. Anyway, and we're going to start off by talking about Doctor Who, but that comes later. Stick around for that. It's going to be fun. Starting off, Jordan, we're going to start off with that. James Gunn gave us our first look at David Corn Sweat as Superman. And Jordan, he sure looks like Superman.
Yeah, he does. He actually looks, although the picture looked like it was like CG to me, or like it was like AI generated.
I was gonna say you said AI. I can see why you would say that. It does have that kind of. I think it may be because those AI set photos leaked and everyone saw those, and so they're like inputted their brain. And I'm sure there's obviously CGI elements there. He's probably wearing a green screen suit in a green screen room.
Yeah, like I'm sure the final product will look more refined. It's just that one solo image that I saw that you sent me. That was my first thought.
The most, they've got. There's elements of it I don't love. I don't like. Here's the thing, right? I saw so many people complaining about this suit, and I was like, "What's the big deal? He looks like Superman." I will give you this. I don't love the collar. The
collar makes me think of the New 52 or like the Injustice or just not a straight Superman.
Yeah,
it's a little too hard edged.
Right, and it's like he sort of indicated it was going to be more classic. It's not really. But most important thing, they got the most important thing right. My man's wearing underpants on the outside of his pants. That I like. It's one of those things where it's like, and we're gonna get to but it's one of those things where I will forgive 99% of any of this movie's problems, as so long as he's got that underwear on the outside of his pants, and he does, So good job, James Gunn.
At least in that one picture, he does.
I mean, unless there's gonna be a moment in the movie where he like takes them off and he's like, "Ew, these underpants are silly," and he throws them, which would also be funny. I would be okay with that because that would be funny. But no, it's a pretty classic Superman look. It's funny to me though, the amount of people who just don't know or get Superman. Like those Snyder fans, man, they just don't understand Superman. It's so fascinating. Like
I would argue they don't get a lot of the DC characters.
Like it's funny. People like I saw one video. I made a TikTok about this, but I saw one guy who was like, "Why is he putting on boots? What's the deal with him putting on boots?" And it's like, guys, it's a really on the nose metaphor for the fact that he's a regular, every average day dude who puts his boots on. He laces his boots on one boot at a time. That's what it's clearly meant to represent.
The thing that this kind of tells me, like the fact that so many people don't know the origins and all that, it just kind of tells me that a lot of the kids now, I'm going to get old here for a second, a lot of the kids nowadays, their only introduction to Superman is these DC movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Superman, Batman, like all of them, is these DC movies, and they aren't the characters in those movies.
It's a similar thing to like there's an entire generation of people who the Batman movies they grew up with were the Christian Bale Batman movies, and that's just not Batman. It's not really accurate. Those are good movies, not an accurate reflection of that character. It's the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think we are experiencing that because it's like you got that right. Like you got that. Like that's why he's putting on the boots. It's supposed to. You got that right. You're smart. You got that. Or did you not
was there a teaser that I didn't? What are you talking about?
In the image of Superman in the suit, he's putting on boots.
Oh, I mean, I didn't really think of that. I just saw that he was wearing the outfit, and I was like, "That's cool."
Yeah, I mean, people are like, "Why is he putting on boots?"
I didn't really think about what he was doing in the picture. I mostly was just looking at the costume, and the costume looked good.
Like the whole thing is clearly a really on the nose metaphor for the fact that he's an average day guy.
I'm sure you're right. Yeah, I'm sure you're right.
He's just going to work.
I just didn't notice.
I saw one people like
pick up on that.
How come he's not stopping the big laser? Because it's a metaphor for the fact that he's just going to work. He's just a regular guy, and his going to the office just happens to be big space lasers, and that's clearly the emphasis of this movie, which James Gunn has made very apparent that is the emphasis of this movie, is the humanity, not the alien. Whereas Zack Snyder was so obsessed with the alien.
On the god. Yeah, he was based on the religious aspects.
Yeah, he was so obsessed with not even just the alien and the foreignness of it. He was obsessed with that. So yeah, he looks like Superman.
Good job,
James Gunn. You nailed it. So Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman were asked about what their potential future in the MCU as Wolverine and Deadpool might be.
Hugh Jackman.
And they said that they were scared to answer, which means they'll be back. They'll be back for something, I'm sure. I'm sure they'll come back and do a Secret Wars.
I was just gonna say I wouldn't be surprised if they're both in Secret Wars in some capacity, especially Ryan Reynolds, who will come back at any time for anything to do Deadpool.
Like it's funny about that movie, just as a side note. The funniest thing about that movie is how, man, there's just this new segment of people on the internet that nothing will make them happy. Like they demand a thing, and then they get the thing they asked for, and then they're not happy. So like we got the yellow suit. He's in the yellow suit. We have been begging for the yellow suit for decades at this point. We got it. It's amazing. I fucking love it, right? And people
he looks great.
Oh, he doesn't have his sleeves. Why doesn't he's got the sleeves on? It's like, okay, well, yeah, they're clearly gonna do a money shot where he's not wearing the sleeves, right? There's gonna be a moment where he's not wearing the sleeves. Who cares ultimately? But whatever. Okay, fine. We'll get rid of it. And then they do it in the trailer, and he's not wearing the sleeves. And people, why the sleeves? They don't. It doesn't look good. It's like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Nothing will make you people happy. He doesn't have the sleeves on. What more do you want?
Fuck him. Fuck him. I'm happy. As Deadpool said in his infamous movie, I'm touching myself tonight.
I'm a little moist.
I mean, you said the M word. That's a bad word.
I'm a little moist.
No, that's not what he said. I said what he said.
I mean,
You've ruined it.
I think
You've
he's.
ruined it. We're moving on. We're moving on.
I'm
You've
pretty sure.
ruined it.
I'm pretty sure he said something similar in the Deadpool 3 trailer. I think I might have changed the word of what he said, but Moist is funnier. Anyway, so Jordan,
I
they
don't
released a
know.
clip. Oh yeah, so yeah, we're gonna talk about young Sheldon again. When I went back through the footage of last week, I realized that we talked about Big Bang Theory for a really long time, but they released a clip of the finale. Also, Jordan, they did it. They did the thing. Did you hear how they did the thing? Spoiler alert for the previous episode of Young Sheldon, but did you hear how they did the thing that they've been talking about for like years?
By the thing, do you mean Sheldon is writing an autobiography?
No, I mean they killed his dad. They finally
Oh,
killed his dad. It was sad. It was proper sad. But no,
no,
Jordan, I'm
I
gonna
didn't hear that.
I'm gonna describe this footage that they've released, if you'll allow me, of the finale, which features Jim Parsons and Mayim Bialik. So the footage is Sheldon is at a laptop and he's writing, and it turns out he's writing his autobiography, Jordan, and Amy is there, and Jordan, if you watch the clip really carefully, you'll hear a telephone that somebody better pick up because we fucking called it. Okay, no, but here's the real question though. Did we call it? Do we have that much, like foresight, or did they just read this fan theory on the internet and went, "Ooh, that's clever. How much money can we pay Jim Parsons and Mayim Bialik to come back to facilitate this?"
I mean, obviously we called it, and we're that amazing,
We're
and
not
that's the
amazing.
answer.
We called it. That's pretty incredible.
Because I'm pretty sure we did that on here,
We did.
on video,
We did. Yeah, we did.
for the record to show.
We are taking credit for it. 100%. We came up with it.
It was our
It was
idea.
our idea.
They
We are claiming
they
it right
they
now.
watched the Spur of the Moment podcast
Exactly.
and saw it, and we're like, that's it. That's
Right?
how we end
But
this.
they didn't see it because they would have had to have had thought this up like at least a year ago before we were doing this podcast. So they have the ability to look into the future, saw that we would make that prediction, and then did it.
Yeah, obviously, there's no other answer.
There's no other answer. There's no other reasonable
And
explanation. Also,
there's really nothing else to say. That's how it is.
Also, you know how you were like, something has to happen to Sheldon to kind of turn him from being like emotionally empathetic and like being a person.
From being a person into a robot. Yeah.
When he finds out his dad dies, like
That's
his.
what
Well, I mean, having the next episode isn't out yet, but like his expression, like his like it's one of those things where like he leaves at in the morning. He's like, "Oh, I'll see you later," and then they kind of like, "Oh, he's dead," and they are all like in tears, and he just sort of silently just sits down in his chair and is just like stone faced, like he doesn't even react. And so then you couple that with the Georgie as an adult saying, "Oh, after Dad died, you ran off to college," so you kind of see.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, that works for me then.
Yeah.
Because like, yeah, in the Big Bang Theory, it's very much like his thing is he doesn't like change.
Yeah.
So there had to be a traumatic thing which happened that would make him not like change. And yeah, death of your father, that definitely that would do it.
Exactly, and that would definitely make him like shut up. But that's weird because the implication seems to be that he's going to go there as a student. Like, so how that now I'm like, okay, now I kind of want to see a follow up to this, where it's him and his early years at Caltech, and like how does he go from being a student there to having like permanent employment that he can't like get fired from later on.
Well, I mean when you watch young Sheldon, you see how the people treat him, him being a genius and everything. It does kind of make sense that he would go there, be super duper smart, and they would be like, "We want to keep you on and pay you."
Yeah, fair.
Like
To be fair,
to me, that the logical progression there does make sense.
To be fair, I haven't really seen it, so I wouldn't know. I'm kind of hoping, yeah, that like
I
there's
watched up until I think season 3, and then no longer had access to Netflix, and haven't seen the rest of it yet.
No, I watch it mostly on TikTok in isolated clips when the episode comes out immediately the next day.
That's fair.
With
I
usually
understand.
usually with a shitty mobile game on the bottom of it, or someone like cooking. Sometimes
Or
it's the one where
or
they
or
like,
cut or sometimes it's people that are cutting soap into like different shapes and
yeah,
stuff.
and you're like, why are you? Yeah, I've seen
I
those
mean,
ones. Or the ones where they've got the soap in
I,
their hand and they're like
I,
shaving it. It's like, why are you doing
yeah, yeah,
that?
that's what I mean. Where it's like they're shaving it into different objects and stuff.
Or the one that I don't get is where I think I've told you
And
about
it's
this one
and it's
before.
like on the one hand, it's actually kind of cool and like you're being creative and it's like that could be its own video. Like people would probably watch that as a video. It doesn't really need to be attached to this Big Bang Theory clip
Yeah, yeah,
or whatever
exactly.
clip.
Exactly, but
Like,
the one that I often see is the one where it's like they shove the cigarettes in the pipe and they cut off the pipe and then they cover the cigarettes with like plaster and they slowly like smooth it out. Ah, I'll send you one. It's the most confusing thing. I have no idea what the purpose is. Anyway,
anyway,
they have revealed that so Galactus is officially in the Fantastic Four movie.
dope.
They've found the actor who's gonna play him. Yeah, it's unclear as to what his role exactly is going to be. I tell you the name, but you wouldn't know it, so I'm not even. Just know that it's a guy.
Bob Barkerson, I
But it's
gotcha.
it's not clear as to whether or not it's just going to be a voice role, or if it's going to be like I imagine probably maybe a motion capture thing. Like, is he going to be a guy? I'm hoping he's a guy, and they don't just go, he's a presence who has a voice. No, guy. Guy. Oh, sorry,
Person,
sorry. I got in trouble for this previously.
person,
Well, at this point, guy in a suit. Now that we have an
but could
official
have,
casting,
but could have been
but could
person.
have been person. Yes. I got in trouble for that. So David Zaslav, normal man, called. That's his full name, by the way. Is David Zaslav, normal man. That's sort of like how, you get that image of Donald Trump and Ike Perlmutter that's just sinister. You know the
Okay.
one. You know the one. He's one of those guys. He declared that the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was disappointing. That it did
The
not make the money they
the
were expecting.
the terrible game which has a bunch of shit in it and it just looks like garbage. That one?
That's the one that they decided to
Right.
make a live service despite the fact that
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm
Marvel's
talking.
live service failed and people like
That,
Marvel.
that's the one I'm talking about. The one that has a bunch of shit in it that's not
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah,
The
yeah.
one that the
Okay,
one
yeah,
that
yeah.
honestly looks like an okay game otherwise. But it's the same thing with the Avengers where you remove all that live service bullshit and it honestly looks like an okay
And
movie. Okay game, I mean.
it's a mediocre game which is turned into a terrible game from all the live service stuff.
It's like how they were gonna make that live service Spider-Man game that looked bad.
The Cross the Spider-Verse one?
Yeah, yeah, that one.
It was an interesting idea.
Have you seen the gameplay?
I saw a very small teaser, which I don't know if it was actually the
I
gameplay.
saw some
So,
gameplay of it, but at least of what it looked like conceptually, and I'm like, no, that looks terrible. It just looks like it's bombarded with spider people, and like, yeah, I'm like, there's no version of this that I thought. I initially I was like, maybe, but when I see it in practice, I'm like, nah, thank you.
that's fair.
So
That's fair. I understand.
I don't know if you know, Jordan, that iCarly ended on a big old cliffhanger.
Yeah, the wedding and the mother showed up, but then you never actually see the mother
And they canceled it. And
and
I'm like,
canceled.
why? But apparently Miranda Cosgrove has said that they're thinking about, or they're talking about, there's talks about maybe doing a movie as a big finale. And I'm like,
Okay,
I'm okay with that.
that
That's kind of what I would
that
want.
makes sense to me.
My instinct is
Where it's
always
like
do a
you
series,
do a
don't do
movie,
a.
you do a movie, and it jump cuts to after the wedding, and it's like they're trying to have the honeymoon, and the mother wants to continue, like wants to have a relationship, and Carly is avoidant, and it's this whole thing, and it's like a meet the parents kind of thing.
Or even better, flash forward. Wait, did they? I don't remember. Did they end up getting married, or was it they were in the midst of planning the wedding?
I think they were literally in the middle of the wedding,
Was that
and
it?
then the mother shows up.
Okay,
That
because
I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it
I
was.
don't remember if they were actually getting. I'm pretty sure they were still in the engagement
I
phase.
I know. I remember there being a video that I saw on TikTok where she's in the wedding dress.
Right, but that's for a bit. Like she's not actually getting married. That's for some other unrelated reason.
No, she was going to be getting married to Freddie.
No, she was getting married to Freddie, but Hold on. Now I
I
need.
I can't say for sure well enough
No,
to say
would
one
take
way or
too
the
would
other.
take too long to. But I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure though. Yeah, they were.
We will find out off stream, and then we will
Um,
comment in the comment section below after.
yeah. But anyway, the point was if they hadn't gotten married, then you make it about the wedding, and you make it about planning the wedding. 'Cause it's a nice hour and a half, nice clean plot for a movie. Or if they already gotten married and you still want to do something with the mother, flash forward like I don't know 5-6 years and make it so they have kids.
I don't know. All I know is that to me, the
And
only
have that have that
the only conflict that works for me in terms of a movie, it would have to be the mother. She's a big enough
right.
thing.
But if you do it where they have
So
kids,
so in some regard, it would have to be her.
right. So what I'm saying is you do it where you make it so it's about Carly and Freddie have kids, and the mom has come back into the picture, whatever. And the conflict of the movie is Carly doesn't want to be like the mom, and then you give the mom some big emotional reason why she left, and they have a big heart to heart, and they reconcile by the end of the movie. You're right. All versions of this include the mom.
Kind of has to.
Because it's how you ended it. You. That's the thing that frustrates me about that finale. Is it asked a question nobody was asking and then didn't answer it.
Yeah, because I just always assumed that she was dead.
Everyone did. Everyone assumed she
So
was
like,
dead.
why would you do that if you weren't going to pay it off?
I don't.
I
I
don't
don't.
get
Yeah, I
it.
don't get. If you were just gonna cancel it, why would you? Why would you do that? Like the thing that frustrates me about these streaming shows is there's no reason to end to cancel these on a cliffhanger. Just like do a short season of like 5 episodes just to wrap it up. Or do a big special, a big 40-minute special that you can like promote the shit out of. Like why?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this?
I wish I knew. I
So
wish I knew.
so you know how they announced that Jurassic Park game that was like a survival horror you're trying to get out of Jurassic
Yeah,
Park, whatever.
I believe I told you about that one.
No, that was one we learned about on stream for this.
Was it?
Yep.
Okay.
But they announced a new Jurassic World game, and nothing's really known about it other than it's coming out in 2025. And I'm like, what do you do? Here's the thing: it's Jurassic Park has never really had a strong video game library because I'm like, what
Well, I
do you
mean,
do?
other than the ones where you're like running the park,
Yeah,
those ones make sense to me.
yeah.
Like you're running the park and you're trying to make it sort of like the evolution, I think it's
Although I
called.
mean, one where you get to play as a T-Rex, that'd be kind of fun.
Sure, but how do you make that into in an entire game?
A 3D action adventure game where it's like you're walking around you're exploring the island as the dinosaur. Like think Spyro, but you're a T-Rex, and it's less colorful.
I don't see it.
I don't know. Either that or it's like you're human and you're killing dinosaurs. Those are kind of your two options.
You're trying to survive the
Although
park.
the rumor or the people are speculating, I should say, that they think it's going to be Evolution 3.
Interesting. I mean, the coolest idea that I saw, which I still would like, it wouldn't take much for them to adapt if they did it for Evolution 3, for example, is where you spend the first half of your game building the park, you make it cool, really impressive, and then the second half. So I think I saw this on Reddit one time. The second half of the game is basically you hit a point where your park is really, really successful, and you beat the level like you would in a normal Evolution game. Then you switch into the other gameplay style where now the park fails and you have to be in a third, like it's a 3D action survival thing,
That'd be
and you
fun.
have to survive your own park that you've built and try to escape it.
That would be fun. That would be very fun. Ted unsurprisingly because it was a big hit. Got renewed for a second season, which is good because that show's actually good.
That doesn't surprise me. I've seen clips of it, and it was funny. It was as funny as the movie was.
It surprises me. It's actually a little bit better than the movies, only because you've got that time to like really. You don't have to worry about being confined to an hour and a half. You can take your time with some jokes, but it does kind of devolve to just being live action Family Guy, including the musical transitions are just Family Guys.
That's fair.
My only
Personally,
thing
I
about
think
it,
my favorite actually, hold on. I'll wait until later to talk about that. But there's another one of Seth Rogen or Seth MacFarlane shows, live action shows, which I think is stronger.
yeah, and that's why I'm like, oh, to hear they're doing a season 2. I mean, that's good, but on the one hand, but on the other hand, that means that they're probably not gonna that Orville's probably gonna get canceled, which is disappointing because that show is
better.
good. We're gonna talk about that later.
Yes, we are.
So Andy
Yes,
Serkis,
we
they've
are.
announced.
So a Golem movie.
Yeah, it's been announced that
That's weird.
Andy Serkis is directing a. Like, initially, it was just the Lord of the Rings movie, and then they announced that the working title is Lord of the Rings: The Hunt for Gollum. So I don't know. Is it gonna be like how does Gollum go from being Smeagol to Gollum? I'm not disinterested in that. I guess.
I just don't know how the character supports an entire movie.
I mean, you could ask the people who made the game. He certainly doesn't. He certainly
He
doesn't
does.
sustain a
He
whole
doesn't.
game.
He
I don't.
doesn't.
I don't understand. No, it's you pair him up with somebody unless you start him off like he's really normal, like he's more like Frodo, and it's about him slowly becoming Gollum. But yeah,
I mean, if I was gonna do that, I would make it a horror movie where
yeah.
it's like this psychological horror of him slowly losing his mind, and it's like you really lean into the horror aspects
That'd
of
be
it, where
fun.
it's like he's seeing shit, like he's seeing the wraiths, and he's seeing like Sauron, and like it's like
I
all in
mean,
his mind and shit.
there's a reason he goes crazy.
Yeah, like I could see doing something like that, but like if it's like an action movie, I don't know how you do
Yeah,
that.
how you do that?
Other than you have it where it's like you have other characters and Gollum is there and
Yeah.
it's like but I don't
Because they're right. I mean, theoretically, there's a bunch of time. I mean, he shows up in that Lord of the Rings game, so there's a bunch of time that he has unaccounted for, where you could make a movie about him, I suppose, if you really wanted to.
I just don't see the
I
desire.
don't know why. It's like, come on, man, let's just enjoy
Maybe
the Lord of the Rings stuff we got. You know, maybe we don't
maybe
make a new one.
maybe maybe I'm the weird one. I don't
To
know.
be fair, I've never been
But
a massive Lord of the Rings guy, so.
I would say
Um,
I'm a passive fan at best.
so
Like
they're making another live action Dora the Explorer movie, which I only included in here specifically so I could bring up the fact that I've never seen the other live action Dora the Explorer movie. All I've seen is there's this one scene where she does a bunch of drugs and hallucinates that she's in the style of the animated show. I just wanted to bring that up here.
okay. I I
I have
okay.
no context for it. I've only seen it in isolated clips. I don't know why it happens, but it happens. Like the
Uh,
map talks, it's a whole thing.
it's one of those things where it's like I'm aware that there was one. It's like what is it like the treasure of the
Yeah,
something or
it's
I don't know.
basically that college humor sketch where they're like, "What if
Yeah,
Dora?"
yeah, yeah,
They actually made it into a real movie. It's
yeah.
crazy.
Okay, that is what I'm thinking of then. Um, I know nothing else about it.
That's
It
it.
was always it was a weird thing to me then, and it's a weird thing to me now.
Um, I just wanted to mention that. Felt it was important. So they're doing. Remember how we keep talking about that Office reboot? So
The
apparently
one
the
that shouldn't exist. Yes, go
well,
on.
I'm not a fan of The Office, right? So,
I am. I
but
am.
the concept of this is that um it's
And no, we need to be fair. It's a reboot of a reboot, technically, because the American version is a reboot of the British version, and this is supposedly a reboot of the American version.
well no
So it's a
so
reboot of a reboot of a reboot.
so it's apparently what it is and I think this idea is kind of clever is the show in the show is a reboot, but it still takes place in the same universe. So it's from what I understand it's a new documentary in the universe of The Office is being created, and I'm like, okay, that I could kind of see because at that point you could do a bunch of jokes about how like it'll never be better than the original. You can have the original characters pop in and out and be like, this is never going to be as good as the and you can make it about the fact that reboots suck, and you can make
Uh,
that the joke, and then it works. Otherwise, yeah, if you're just gonna try to do like
no,
new character, you're trying to do the same characters but played by new people, it'll never work.
I don't think it will either way. No, that sounds awful to me. I like The Office. Let's just leave The Office to be The Office. Like no. This has a Jordan seal of non-approval.
Sorry, I'm just trying to see. I'm looking through the rest of my news. I'm like, do we have to talk about this? Jeremy Renner revealed that he died in his snowplow accident, making him a real life badass.
Wait, what? Wait, sorry. Jeremy Renner revealed that he died.
Yeah, you know how he's in that big snowplow accident?
So the person who died revealed that he died.
Yeah, he died and then they brought him back to life. You know, like you do sometimes.
Okay. Yeah, no, okay. Sorry, it wasn't in my brain.
Yes, no,
I
he's
was like,
currently still
so,
alive.
so, so he's a zombie?
No,
What?
no, no, no. He died for
My
like 15
brain,
minutes or something like that, and then they brought him back to
my
life.
brain just, it was not clicking. I wasn't,
Um,
it did not, you just saw Jordan do a does not compute moment.
but yeah, he's a badass. He got hit by a snowplow and lived.
Okay.
Um,
That checks out.
apparently
So
they're
we don't have to get our zombie killing axe.
it's true.
Okay.
Um,
Cool.
they are apparently re-releasing, or doing a new release of Rocksmith. So Jordan, you can finally learn how to play guitar off of the PS5 now.
Cool. I might actually buy that.
That is coming apparently. Despicable.
Not that I think I'll suddenly become a master guitar, but that was fun. That was actually like regardless of how effective it is at teaching, to be able to play like Guitar Hero but with an actual guitar is actually fun.
That was pretty cool. Sorry, it's our time on news is going like we're running long on news. So that's why I'm trying to do these last few stories. There's not a whole lot of meat to them. Despicable 4 trailer. There's a new one. They revealed new Mega Minions in it. We're all just like, hey, we got superpowers now.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
Doesn't really look good to me.
And someone pointed this out, and it's like they're like, oh, so people aren't happy that they recast Agnes, and that's brought the whole discussion of.
They did?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, because they have to because they're the same age. She's still a little girl, and the real life girl got
No,
older.
I get that. I'm just saying that she doesn't have a memorable voice, and I wouldn't have known that at all if you hadn't just told me.
But yeah, people are like, upset about that, and it's like, well, and then they're like, oh, why don't they age up these characters? And then I didn't know, it wasn't really a problem for me. I was like, oh, that's annoying until someone pointed out, well, he's got a kid now, so them not being any older doesn't make any sense. So wait, the passage of time has moved along far enough so that 9 months can pass so she can have or give birth to a child and have him be a baby, but they're still the same age somehow.
I mean, you could have them still look somewhat similar, but then that makes it okay that the main girl's voice got, or the girl, the one, whatever, the voice actress, that she got older. She aged. The character aged.
Yeah, but
that's fine.
It's not
You didn't need so you didn't need to recast her. You could just have her have an older voice and look slightly different.
I mean, yeah, but they're not doing that. She looks exactly the same, implying they all look exactly the same.
I know. I'm saying they have created their own by recasting.
Oh, I know.
They've created their own continuity error.
For sure.
They didn't even need to do that.
Just age her up like slightly, and then yeah, you don't have to age her up a ton.
Like have it where like instead of having her hair in the ponytail or whatever it's always in, it's down now. It's a little bit longer, and her voice is slightly different.
Like the third one. Second one of them implies that they've been together like a while, so it's just like, yeah, it stops making sense, and it's annoying because it holds like the writers back from doing anything interesting with these characters because they gotta be stuck in the same place. It's annoying and frustrating, but it otherwise looks better than the last one.
Oh no, I don't think so.
I don't really remember the last one all that well.
The last one was the one with the dude that was from South Park, which instantly made it better because I at least knew who he was.
Oh yeah, that is true. That is true.
This one just kind of
the only thing that would make
they all start to look the same after a while.
The only thing that I think would make
where
it
we're
fun,
at.
Is if they didn't say which minions were the ones who were getting the superpowers, but it would be kind of a fun nod to the Minion movies, the spin-offs, if the main minions from those movies were the ones who got superpowers. So like Bob, Stuart, and Kevin, if they were the ones who got superpowers.
I feel like that's the idea.
I'm honestly not sure. It's hard to tell. They all look the same.
I can't tell. I'm gonna be racist here. They all look the same to me.
They all look the same.
They're all yellow with goggles.
They're
not really minions anymore because they're not bad guys. So
apparently, Marvel's was 2023's biggest flop. Apparently, the Flash was the Flash was a close second. which is incredible because The Flash is a far worse movie by like
I
a
would
lot.
agree with that.
By like a
I
lot.
would agree with that.
So if you ever think that sexism doesn't prevail, sexism sure prevails.
Well, I mean, that's not surprising.
That is definitely not surprising. And then finally, they released a trailer for Exploding Kittens, the show based on the card game Exploding Kittens.
I'm sorry. What?
Yes.
How are they making it into a show?
Well, Jordan.
It's not exactly a medium which.
Well, Jordan, the show is about God, who is sent down to Earth to for some sort of administrative reason, and is sent into the body of a cat, and he has to fight Satan, who has also been put into a body of a cat, and it's about Satan versus.
Okay, stop.
And the art style looks like the cards.
Stop. No.
And God Cat.
We will never acknowledge this again. That sounds incredibly stupid.
God Cat is voiced by Tom Ellis, who plays Lucifer in Lucifer. And quite honestly, Jordan, I'm just being honest with you here. I'm being flat and 100% real with you right now. It honestly looks pretty good. It looks pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie to you.
It sounds really dumb.
I'll send you the trailer. It's honestly pretty good.
Just at face value, what you're describing to me hearing it and picturing it in my head. Maybe the trailer makes it look bad. It sounds bad.
It honestly looks like it's gonna be kind of fun. I mean, it's on Netflix, so it's sort of irrelevant. We're never gonna end up watching it, but
we might one day. Who knows?
So that's the news. That was the news. Oh God, I forgot about it. I forgot about it. I wish some sort of amorphous, otherworldly entity would come and steal that music. That's a reference. That's a reference to a thing we're going to talk about after today's sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by Boom. Nailed it. Nailed the takeoff. This episode is sponsored by Trophy Smack. Jordan, let me ask you a question. Okay? Let's say
yes.
Let's say that you had a son and you wanted to tell that son how proud you were. Shut up, go with the fantasy. How proud you were of his baseball sport match. So what could you do? Where could you go to celebrate that?
Well, I mean,
match?
I could go to TrophySmack.com, buy him a trophy which has a custom topper, custom engraving, get him a cool belt, a ring, necklaces. Do they have necklaces? I feel like they have necklaces. And then I could also show up with loser trophy for the other team because they're inferior to my son because he has the best genes.
They must be reminded.
And they have to be reminded.
They need a trophy to tell them that they're a big old loser. Jordan, we don't do participation trophies around here. We do big old loser trophies. Trophies they tell. But more importantly, you know what they can get those big old loser trophies, Jordan?
I mean, they can get them at TrophySmack.com.
TrophySmack.com. That's not their jingle. I don't know what I was
using our link in the description
Specifically
below.
our link in the description below.
Only our link.
Our link. It helps us.
It
helps
do
them.
not just Do not just type in TrophySmack.com and go above our head and buy a trophy without it. Because we would be upset about that.
We would be left out of the transaction, and it's important that you click our link to go to TrophySmack.com.
It's right there. It's easy.
Right there. On with the show, Jordan.
On with the show, my good sir.
So the theme of this week, everybody. The theme of this week is science fiction. Ooh. Theremin science fiction. And to start off with, we're gonna get into the normal show as normal, but as our first mutual at the same time rapid fire. We both watched
Doctor Who.
Jordan, what did you think of Doctor Who? I wasn't expecting 2 episodes. I will say that was a surprise.
2 episodes was nice. The first episode. So okay. Before we say anything,
big old spoilers, by the way.
Big old spoiler warning. Anyone who doesn't want to hear us talk about this.
Okay. No spoilers. Rapid. What did you think? For me,
rapid. No spoilers. I liked it. The first episode was cute. It had a lot of cute stuff in it. We'll go into details in a bit. Second episode has interesting ties back to the toy maker stuff, um, and was fun. And I like the Doctor so far. At times, I think he's a little over the top so far. Uh, Companion is cute, fun, cute, and overall, I enjoyed it.
Real fast for me. First episode so. Second episode is the better of the two. It was way more interesting. The villain is phenomenal. They are so good. They are hamming it and they are loving it. And let's get into the meat of this. So my thing with that first episode is it's like
And now spoilers.
now spoilers. Go watch them if you like Doctor Who. You'll have a good time, or you'll be mad that it's too woke. Whatever, I don't care. Do what you want. I thought the first episode was really soft. It was weirdly soft.
I mean, technically, it's the second episode,
Right.
But...
I mean, that was cool. I did appreciate that. No time jumps for the like. None of that Stephen Moffat shit happens off screen bullshit. Like it starts off immediately where the last one left off. We're immediately into it. I will say it does get a little like the characters are standing in a room just explaining Doctor Who shit. Oh, I'm sorry. Have you never watched an episode of Doctor Who before? Here's everything you need to know in about 5 minutes.
Because it kind of suffers from the fact that this is technically supposed to be the start of a new show,
right? But
so they have to retroactively explain all this stuff.
But again, the first reboot doesn't. Right, that's my thing. Is if I'm comparing this to the first time Russell T Davies relaunched the franchise to now, he didn't feel the need to explain exactly. Like this feels like it's talking down to the audience. Like, oh, we think you're dumb, and you like even Stephen Moffat when that was the first time the show had really gone to America, didn't really overly explain the Doctor as badly as they do in this episode.
And that's where so earlier off stream I said to you that I can feel the Disney influence.
Yeah,
that's an example of that.
Yeah,
that's a Disney executive note being like, well, I mean, the new fans don't necessarily know all this, so you should probably take some time to explain this just for the people that are coming onto Disney Plus and just clicking on who have never experienced it before. You just do it. Just do it. I don't know why I'm doing that.
My thing was like, and that it's just so like safe. Like they literally help space babies. Like it cannot be, and they're fighting a monster made out of snot. Like
the boogeyman,
not bogeyman.
Sorry, the bogeyman.
That was funny. I will acknowledge that was funny. That was a funny because it was driving me crazy. I'm like, it's boogeyman. It's boogeyman.
The one thing that was driving me crazy, it was supposed to be a running gag, I get, but it didn't land for me, was every time they would be like, oh, it's the babies, the space babies!
Yeah, the space babies.
And it's like, okay, that was funny like the first 2 times. Please stop.
I think it's meant to make you go like, it's supposed to be like, oh, so you don't get overly like uptight about the fact that they're literally threatening the lives of babies. I think so. You're like, oh, they're not really babies, like Earth babies. They're like space babies. Although the thing was a really elaborate, on the nose metaphor for
acceptance.
About the pro-life versus pro-choice stuff. That clearly that being like, oh, it's illegal to shut down baby farms, even though it's
yeah.
That's all very overtly
like the point where what was it? Where Ruby who says it, where she's like, so like. They care enough that like they have to be born, but not enough to take care of them when they're in the world, and it's like, okay, yeah, okay, and him being like, yeah, one of them was like, oh, like it's such a weird concept, and she's like, no, not really, and I'm okay, yeah, I get it,
yeah, I get it,
I get it,
I get what you're trying to say here, and like
it's not subtle,
and it's just like, there's just he has so many speeches in that episode just explaining Doctor Who. And like I will say that the bogeyman was scary, but just the resolution that it's like everything's fine and there's no real danger, and don't worry, Ruby, like there's no real danger on a Doctor Who adventure, and it just kind of it made me feel too. It reminded me too much of the first episode, second episode of the original season 1 of Doctor Who, of New Who, where it's like, yeah, they go to the spaceship and there's, you know what I mean, like with where they first meet the flat lady. That's what this episode reminded me of, like a little too
That
much.
that being said, I did appreciate when well, I think it was in the first one where he's like, the one place I will never take you to is the church to find
Yeah,
out about your parents, because he's like that almost felt like a callback to David Tennant, where it's like, oh, he's learned.
yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
He's learned from Rose not to trust
I mean,
stupid monkeys again.
on a performance level, I love his ability to snap. Like he's serious and then he's not. So he's not serious. He's having a good
Yeah,
time, and then when the moment needs it, boom, he's serious. But it's
yeah.
interesting. I still maintain. I'm a little less. I'm a little less. Okay, we're gonna talk about the next one. But I'm. I know I'm who Ruby's mother is, the mystery of who Ruby's mother is. I'm not so sure it's the 13th Doctor anymore, but it is definitely someone that's connected to either to the Doctor or the Toy Maker. Like either
I
it's
maintain that I think it's the Master
I don't think it's
or
the Master.
Mistress.
I don't think it's the Master or the Mistress. I think truthfully, I think it's Susan. I think her mom is Susan because
Susan.
the Doctor's granddaughter, the one that he
Oh,
out of
okay.
nowhere just mentions to remind the audience of who she is. Oh yeah, I'm also living in this time, and that bothers me because it's like it just you're just like, wait. So if the original Doctor is here, why is he not? Did he not notice that music just disappeared from the world? Did he not do anything about this? Like, I understand that the show then goes out of its way to be like, it's time travel, things get messy, but like still like in the previous scene you're like, yeah, he's just like down the block from here, we could go get his help, there'd be two of me. Like he's not allowed to go anywhere near other versions of himself. Why is it he all of a sudden can? Like that's it's
Well,
weird, if not to
that's
remind you
where
that she exists in the universe and is also a
that
Time Lord.
that's where I think I, I think part of the reason why he can now is because the toy maker basically broke the universe.
Yeah, so that's where you're like, oh, um there's a big musical number at the end. It's weird, and the song is not very good. I was forgiving of it. I said it, but the song's not very good.
Mm. In the second one,
Yeah, in the second one, yeah,
or third one, technically, third episode.
yeah, yeah. Well, no, technically, no. This is technically episode 2 because the Christmas special is still its own thing. On Disney Plus, it's labeled as like the first episode, but it's technically, in terms of like series order, it's not. It's a special. It's its own thing. Um, but yeah. Anyway,
So far, I think it's better than the 2 episodes.
the Christmas special.
Yeah.
No, it's not. No, I quite liked. I quite liked the second one. And maybe it's because they're going to a part of history I like, and it's with people in history that I'm familiar with, and
I
really
mean,
like the
yeah,
bad
okay.
guy. I really like the bad guy. The Maestro is so good. They're scary. They're goofy. They're silly. My one thing is, yeah, I'm being pushed a little too far with the unreality. And I understand that's the point. They're other dimensional beings that are kind of akin to Mr. Oh, I always fuck up the pronunciations.
Mr. Mixoplex.
Yeah. They're basically that. And they all come from him, right? And it's all clearly leading to a big bad one. And so I understand. I think, like, you're like, oh, I don't like I think the big musical, like, for me, it was like, oh, okay, they're making they're making the song. But for me, the moment where I went, okay, I think we're supposed to recognize that this isn't normal, is at the end, after the musical number has concluded, and they're walking along the sidewalk, or they're walking through the Abbey Road crosswalk, and they're playing like piano on the crosswalk stripes, and neither of them are like, this is weird, that's not normal. I think that's the point. I think we're supposed to, or the fact that the Maestro keeps breaking the fourth wall. I think that's the point. I think we're supposed to be like, this is not normal. This is weird. This doesn't belong. Like, I think that sense of
I
like,
mean, I don't disagree. It, Disney bought Doctor Who or got rights or whatever is doing it, and now the show has just a whole bunch of music, and it's like
But it's not a whole
maybe
bunch. It's
maybe
not a whole
it
bunch. It's
is.
two
It is.
musical. It's two musical numbers. It's two. It's not a whole bunch. It's two.
It is.
That two
It
is
is a
not a whole
bunch.
bunch. One more maybe
When
is a
you
bunch, but two.
when all you have is 3 episodes, yes, that means that it's most of the show so
I
far.
mean, but again, it's
So
not.
again,
It's
yes,
not.
they have the right, they have the time to step out of that. But from what we have so far, yes,
And I don't know. I mean,
it is a lot.
in this one,
And so it just unless there is a point to it story wise, it just feels like they're doing it for the sake of doing it.
no. There's definitely a point to
And
it story wise. That I will say. It's
and
deliberate,
it's not working for me.
especially because there's a lot of really interesting lines, but the Doctor makes a joke. About how that I don't imagine you got, and I didn't even get to explain this when we did our episode with Haley, but he said when he's trying to figure out what the chord to banish the maestro is, and he's playing the song, and he's like, oh, I thought that would be non-diegetic. That's funny. If you're familiar with musicals, there's two types of music in movies. There's two types of music in movies. It's diegetic and non-diegetic. Diegetic is like music that you hear within the narrative. So a song that a character is playing in the moment. So like Bohemian Rhapsody, the big concert, that's diegetic. Non-diegetic, exact opposite of that. So when a character, like in a movie musical, when
So basically, what happened in the episode?
yes,
Where,
yes,
diegetic would be the Doctor playing it, non-diegetic
absolutely.
with John Lennon and Paul McCartney playing it.
No, that is diegetic because they're playing the piano to banish. The non-diegetic
No,
would be
they're not playing it to banish it. They have no idea what's going on.
no.
They were just playing the piano.
No. That's what I'm saying. So an example of non-diegetic would be the big musical number at the end of the episode, where all the characters start singing and dancing, and nobody addresses it or acknowledges it. So basically, like,
Oh, so non-diegetic is basically a big lipped alligator moment.
or no, it's more just like a traditional musical number in it. In the musical, everyone stops what they're doing in the movie. They all start singing and dancing, and then they go back to what they're doing. So like,
Yeah, so a big lipped alligator moment.
no, it's not a big lipped alligator moment. It's more like Grease. An example of a non-diegetic song would be Summer Lovin'. So far, and from the perspective of the characters in the movie, they're not singing a song. They are merely having a conversation. But to us as the audience, we are seeing it as a song. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I'm wondering if the fact that they had a non-diegetic number at the end of this episode is intentional, and if there's another being manipulating, like this one who waits. I will say there's some really goofy, like when the maestro gets pulled back into the piano and takes a beat to be like, beware the one who waits. I'm like, yeah, that's goofy. That's silly.
They're all related to the toy maker, though. So
Well, yeah, but is the one who waits the toy maker's boss? That's the question.
no, because from the sounds of it, they're all the children of the toy maker.
I'm wondering if the one either the Ruby's mom is either the one who waits, or I think the one who waits is Susan. I think it's gonna turn out Susan will come back and it'll be like she's a time lady and she's regenerated a bunch, and that'll be the reasoning for why she looks different. It's so weird to me that she looks like the 13th Doctor. That's so weird to me.
Maybe, but I don't know who. If so, that feels like a deep cut reference because I have no idea who that is.
I mean, no, yes and no. It's not really. I mean, she's the first companion. So from the very first Doctor Who, I mean, she's the Doctor's granddaughter from the very first season of Doctor. Not very first season, but she was there for a while. So no, it wouldn't be a deep cut. It might be for like more casual Doctor Who fans, but for even no, it wouldn't be that deep of a cut. But again, it's weird that they would just he's never this is the first time they've ever mentioned her in Modern Who. Like they've never mentioned her, at least in my recollection.
Clearly, because I had no idea who it was. Who they were talking about.
Because her existence in the universe is messy. Because the show otherwise is like he's this lone figure, but it's like, oh, he's this lone figure, but he has a granddaughter. Because initially, in the original concept of the show, and especially in the first few episodes, they're not aliens. They're just time travelers. Like it's sort of implied that they're humans from the future. Like they're not actually aliens from another planet. Those were details that were added later, and along with the regeneration two hearts that works.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I think it might turn out that it's very very interesting how this person, whether or not the doctor, cause I thought it was the doctor knew her, but clearly not. So she knows the doctor though, for some reason. She turns around and she now points at the doctor in the memory. The memory is now changed.
Which is why I think that it's a future version of the Master.
I don't think so. No,
Because the Master would know the Doctor.
that connection's too loose. Again, they're gonna have to.
I don't think so, considering they've already set her up.
No, and they've made it pretty clear they don't really have an interest in doing the Master again. But no, I don't think it will be.
I mean,
think
they
it's,
set her up.
I think it. No, I don't think they remotely have.
Yeah, they have.
No, not
Didn't the
really.
person have the ring which brought her back?
Oh, right. In that regard, yeah. Sorry, yeah, they did. I thought you meant something different. But yes, you're right. She did technically pick it up. No, I don't think. I think it's probably gonna end up being this one who waits is gonna end up being Ruby's mom, and it's gonna be like Ruby has some sort of magical powers or whatever, and she's gonna end up having the reality distorting power. I like. I think this is going to turn to one of those situations where the resolution of this is way less interesting than anything that people have come up with, and that sucks.
Probably. That's usually how these things go.
But yeah, it was okay. Don't expect one of these every week because I can't do unless something big and exciting happens.
I mean, maybe every 2 episodes.
Yeah, maybe every 2 episodes. Who knows?
So we can do like what we just did here, where we do 2 episodes at once.
Exactly. But with that, let's move into proper rapid fire. As is the tradition, I explain the tradition, and then Jordan goes first.
Did you already explain the tradition?
Yeah, that was me explaining the tradition.
Okay. I zoned out there for a minute, and like my brain just took a second to catch up. Okay, my first rapid fire was the movie Lucy.
Oh, I was gonna watch that. That's so funny. That's the one where it does the bullshit like we only use 99% of our brains and
No. We use 10% of our brains.
Right. Which
And
is total
and
bullshit
and
because
and 100% essentially turns you into an omnipotent
yeah.
god being.
And if so, I saw a scientist which said that it was funny because if that were true, if you only use 10% of your brain, you'd be a vegetable. Like obviously you use all of your brain. Like what kind of
That's kind
idiotic
of, yeah. But
pseudoscience is that?
that it's pseudoscience at its best. But that being said, it's still fun. Scarlett Johansson, does some tight action scenes in it.
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman is always a delight to watch movies with him in it. It's dumb. It's fun. If you're into the science fiction, it's got science fiction up the wazoo.
Oh yeah.
because
It's absolutely science
because
fiction.
none of it is fiction.
Right? None of it is
Um,
none of it is science, you mean? Or fact? It's all fiction?
it's all fiction. That's what I mean. Strike that, reverse it. But I don't have a lot more to say about it than that. It's fun.
Okay. Well, I just realized I have a movie in here I didn't actually watch. Sorry. I watched my first one. I don't actually have a ton of rapid fire. I only have two.
I have a
Um,
couple.
but my first one is I watched Edge of Tomorrow, or Live, Die, Repeat, as it eventually got retitled in certain areas, which is what if science fiction, but Tom Cruise does a Groundhog Day, and I'm like, what? So that just made me go. I've always had this idea. What movie would you make where it's blank, but it's also a Groundhog Day?
I would do a heist, like a bank heist.
Oh, that's
just a very
interesting.
a very simple bank heist where it's like they have to try and break in and steal, I don't know, $100,000, something like that. Very, very basic idea. And they keep going through all the things, like at first, like they've never robbed a bank before, so like they're like very, very noob at it, and you get to watch time after time after time of the person or team or whatever the story would be, probably person, individual, single person, who keeps trying to break in over and over. First time, he goes in with a gun and does the classic stick up. That doesn't work. He ends up in jail. Dave rewinds. He goes back the next day and he's like dressed up as the bank vault person, tries to pretend that he like has a job that, and scene after scene of him trying to break in and doing it and the comedy that ensues.
That's funny. See, that's a different direction than I was expecting. For me, my go-to is always, it's Groundhog Day, but it's also a sports movie. And then my mine is always it's Groundhog Day, but it's either MMA or boxing, and it's about a guy who keeps losing this championship fight over and over again, and he's got to like get better and then eventually beat the guy or whatever, and he's learning to love his family, and it's a sports movie, but it's also Groundhog Day.
That's cute.
But regards to this movie, yeah, it's fun. It's the suits that they wear are hilarious and cumbersome, and they don't make any sense to me. They're just like these things just seem like they're more difficult to use than
And then they are.
than they are. Yeah.
Um,
But Emily Blunt is badass and is otherwise an okay movie.
that's fair. I understand.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all I have to say about that.
That's all he has to say about that. Um, all right, my next pick is a good old Nicolas Cage movie called Knowing.
Oh yeah, that's the one where he sees the numbers, right?
That's the one where his son, his school has a time capsule that they open, and inside of it is the piece of paper which has all the numbers on it, which has the different dates and death totals and locations of every major crisis that like ever happened, including 9/11 and all that. And the end of it is that the children get taken away in like a space ark by aliens, and essentially pretty literally end up in like a Garden of Eden type thing. And like the final scene is them running towards this big tree, which is very obviously supposed to be a metaphor for like the tree of knowledge. It's very on the nose.
Yeah, is it? Yeah, isn't that? See, I remember that movie being like one big, like elaborate metaphor for the rapture.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Where it's like all the innocent children get taken away by aliens to this different planet to be rescued from the apocalypse. And the dad, Nicolas Cage, like his entire life, his dad has been a priest and he's been like atheist and all that. And like the final scene is like him reconciling with the fact that like, hopefully there is an afterlife and yada yada. It's very, like I said, very on the nose.
That's funny.
Not subtle. But if you like Nicolas Cage, it's a Nicolas Cage
Is
movie.
it Pete
With
Cage? Does he go Pete
it,
Cage?
I mean, it's pretty what you would expect from Nicolas Cage.
No, I mean
Pretty,
not. You can get bad Nicolas Cage where he doesn't go Pete Cage and it's just boring Cage. He's got to run a boring Cage where he's like, oh,
I don't know.
he's not going wild enough.
I don't know. I think it works for what we have. It's fine.
He's not
It
Rage
exists.
Cage.
It's not his best movie by any stretch of the imagination. That is and will always be National Treasure.
That is true. That's true.
Um, but it's fine. That's knowing.
All right.
And knowing is enough.
Is enough. So I don't have much rapid fire this week. My last rapid fire because we're gonna talk about why I don't have much rapid fire later.
I have two more.
But my last rapid fire is Pacific Rim 1, first Pacific Rim. And that movie is fun. I do have a couple all the action sequences take place like when it's dark or rainy or in water. So a lot of it is really hard to see. And they do that annoying thing that a lot of like Japanese kaiju movies do where it's like it'll show you the guys, and then this is going to be an important detail later, but they show you guys these like giant robots and they move agonizingly slowly, but the movie is shot from their perspective. So it's like from their perspective, they would not be moving agonizingly slowly. They'd be moving at the rough, comparable speed to what we move because that's how scaling works. So it's like all the action sequences, all the fights are really slow and boring. Like it takes them like 3 years to like wind up a punch where like you're like, oh my god, just hit him. Just hit him. Stop taking 3,000 years to hit him and just hit him. And like the designs, my thing with this, it's one of those movies where it wants to pretend like this universe exists and we all know it. So it'll be like, oh, it's blah 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 named robot, as if I know that. I don't know what that.
It's the Jaeger Bomb
You're
5000.
like, I don't know what this is. I don't know why I should care. And like none of the Jaeger designs are particularly interesting or exciting looking. Same with the kaiju. Like none of them are very unique or interesting looking. Like they're just kind of like, yeah, they're just varying degrees of big lizard. Like
I remember liking this movie. Why are you shitting on it?
it's okay. It's an okay movie. It's not the best version of that it could be. I think is what. And I think I'm upset because it should have been a bigger franchise than it was.
It, it got a sequel.
They got one sequel in a Netflix series, and that's it. We're gonna talk about the sequel later. Anyway, yeah, that's Pacific Rim. It's okay. It's okay. It's fun. It's a big dumb robot punching lizard movie.
Ooh,
None of the characters are very interesting, except for Idris Elba. Idris Elba is the best character in that movie.
that's fair. I understand. My another my another one of my rapid fires was, it's funny that you brought up Jurassic World, because that was one of my rapid fires. I watched Jurassic World.
All right.
It's fun. It's fun that you get to see Jurassic Park that actually was successful. I like that it takes place in the same world as the first one. So like that tragedy still happened, and yet somehow they still managed to secure the funding and budget and like create another second park, which was then successful. And then they had to get greedy and create a dinosaur that wasn't real, and fuck it all up.
Well, it's just funny because it's a very believable world where you're like, yeah, you know what, we would do that.
Oh, we would absolutely.
We would do that.
That is for sure what would happen in
Yeah.
that situation.
Yeah.
You would have a very successful park, and some greedy fucking corporate sleazebag would want to then try to, you know.
Honestly, the most unrealistic the most unrealistic part about Jurassic. Hold on. Oh,
Bless you.
sorry. The most unrealistic part of Jurassic World is that they shut the. Oh my god. The most unrealistic part of Jurassic World is that they shut it down after one accident. They didn't try to reopen again. Like if that were the real world, they would have taken a couple of months, been like it was a real tragedy what happened, and then they reopen.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah,
claimed
probably.
that it was safe, and they'd be like, we've beefed up safety measures. No one has to worry, and then people would go anyway.
It will never happen again. Also, there would be far more people in that world, like the army dude who wants to use the raptors as biological weapons. You would have a lot more of those.
I mean, the movies never did that, which is a shame because it's the most interesting direction you could take those movies. But whatever.
Having the dinosaurs become weapons of war.
Yeah, where it's dinosaurs fighting each other with lasers and shit.
I mean, at that point, it would kind of stop being Jurassic Park, but
I would argue by the second one, it had stopped being Jurassic Park.
I would argue that shut up. I like Jurassic World, and I choose to not remember the other ones.
He's the motherfucking T-Rex.
Yeah, the scene where the T-Rex shows up and the T-Rex is looking at the raptor, and it's like, we good, bro? We're good. Yeah, and they both run off in separate directions. But no, yeah, I like that movie. It's a fun movie. Do you have any other rapid fires?
I do not.
All right, I have one more. Because if we're doing science fiction, I have to talk about my favorite Star Trek show that's not a Star Trek show, and that's The Orville.
Oh, The Orville. So, you know what? My last rapid fire is The Orville as well, because I love The Orville.
It's such a good show.
It's better than it has any right to be.
Oh, really? Yeah, you're not wrong. And the writing is solid. It touches on topics which are just so well thought out. I didn't get to finish it. I'm gonna keep watching it even if this week is over, because I just like the show that much. But I really just can't gush enough about it.
Yeah, it's the show that makes you go, wow, Seth MacFarlane might actually be a good actor.
You're right.
If he made less fart jokes and put effort in, he probably could do something.
He could go places.
Yeah, that young Seth, young up and comer Seth MacFarlane,
a young up and comer who has just so much going for him.
Right.
Um,
He might make it.
but no, yeah, like I said, it's my favorite Star Trek show. That's not a Star Trek show,
True, yeah. That, to me, that's the most ideal version of the future. Is the future that's presented in Orville,
right? All the fun of the pop culture with all the Star Trek stuff.
right? With none of the shit that holds us back, which we won't talk about.
That's a whole other
That's a
podcast,
whole other podcast.
which we just don't have time for that. So that's all my rapid fires.
All
That's all
right.
your rapid fires. I
Yep.
think you know what time it is.
It's time for the full. It's time for the full report, George. It's time for the full report. That's the
Oh,
name.
oh, I thought you were gonna. I was sure you were gonna come back at me with more Velma.
Oh, right, Velma. Right. Yeah, I know. We have to do an update to our segment. I completely forgot. A Doctor Who distracted me. George, it's time to do an updated version of our segment. What's going on with Velma?
What's going on with
What's
Velma?
going on with Velma? So, Jordan, I won't lie to you. I couldn't be bothered to watch it, so I watched several YouTube videos about what happened instead. And instead of this being a recurring bit, this is probably going to be the second and only other part to this, because I cannot be bothered to actually watch this show. But George, sure as shit,
That's fair. That's
sure as
fair.
shit. So okay, so from what I understand, it turns out that one of their parents is part of a secret government shadowy organization that is attempting to create a talking dog, which turns out, for reasons I don't remember, but I definitely saw. And they create Scrappy, who does talk and is voiced by, as near as I can tell, Jason Mantzoukas. If it's not Jason Mantzoukas, it sure as shit sounds like him. And yeah, he's crazy and he kills a bunch of people. He's the big bad murderer of the season, and then he kills Velma, and that happens. And he's like really muscular and he's got short legs. And part of the joke is that he says variations on da 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 or puppy power or one of his other catchphrases, which is not coming to me at the moment. He says varying variations of it.
Interesting catchphrase.
Interesting catchphrase. And yeah, thus concludes our segment, which is probably shorter this time. What's going on Velma?
What's going on with Velma?
What's happening with Velma? Is Velma all
What
right?
what is the deal with Velma?
Velma, I love how we're talking to Velma as though she were a real person. Velma, are you okay? Are you okay, Velma?
Velma, do you need help, Velma?
Do you need help? Put down
Velma,
put down the bottle,
Velma,
Velma. Put it
Velma,
down.
do you need to be taken away from Mindy Kaling
you're
and,
like-
and
you're
into a better show writer?
Is she hurting you, Velma? Are you okay?
Anyways,
Anyway,
that's Velma.
that was Velma. So with that,
The bit's
Jordan,
going on too long, Justin.
since you had you know what, you may go first. What is your first full report? That's by the way, I've changed this second part of the have you seens our full report.
All right,
Maybe the name
All
will
right,
change. I don't know. I'm feeling it out.
I respect that.
I'm feeling
So
it out.
the first one that I did, actually, we're gonna save that one for a second because that'll take longer to talk about. The first one is source code.
Oh, that was
Um,
good. Groundhog Day.
It
Groundhog Day
is
on
a
a train.
Groundhog Day on a train. He keeps going through 8 minutes of time, and he's got to find the person that put the bomb on the train and save a bunch of people. And then there's a bunch of wibbly wobbly, confusing stuff at the end.
It's funny because that's one of those movies where I know I have a lot to say about it, and I know that it's the same thing every single time I watch it because I think I've seen that movie twice, maybe 3 times, and I can never remember what it is about that movie that bothers me until I'm watching it.
I guarantee you, it's the end.
It's probably the end because the end is confusing from what I recall. Spoilers for this movie, by the way. He goes to
Yeah,
heaven apparently at the end.
What? No, that's where it's
Or another universe?
confusing. That's where it's confusing. Because one could interpret it that at the moment his life support is turned off, he then is immediately plunged into heaven, which just happens to look like the real world. And he gets to continue living in the body of the person that he's been taking over the course of the movie. But one could also interpret it that uh, source code is not merely a simulation, but a machine that lets them create alternate worlds and timelines. And he did actually change everything, and he is in a different timeline, but it's not really confirmed one way or the other.
I
It's
think.
kind of up for
Well,
interpretation.
I think they sort of. Yeah, I think they sort of confirmed the yeah they're impacting time because I think isn't there a moment where like he impacts something like he's not supposed to be able to?
Well, yeah, he goes back into the source code at the end. That's where I'm saying there's he goes back in for like a final 8 minutes or whatever to try and save all the people on the train. And at the point where the 8 minutes would end, Goodwin switches off his life support and his body and brain dies. And the movie at that moment, it the way that it shows this is it shows Jake Gyllenhaal in the body and time is frozen as he's kissing the girl. So one could interpret that as him dying, and everything after that moment is him in heaven. One could interpret it that
One
way.
could interpret it that way.
But you could also interpret it as it's shown, which is that he's then in the body of this other person, and he is alive, but he hasn't been sent back yet, and he's now in an alternate world. That's where I say it's confusing. They don't really confirm one way or the other what actually happened. It's kind of up for interpretation.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that. I do remember the ending being frustrating, but I remember there being something else about it that I don't remember. It's been so long since I've seen it, but I definitely remember the ending being like, what?
It's a good movie though.
It is a good movie, yeah.
Um,
Jake Gyllenhaal,
and Jake Gyllenhaal does a really good job in it,
Russell
and
Peters is in
the
it for some reason.
that is true, and he's a comedian,
Yeah, and he's a
so it's like
comedian.
he's not called Russell Peters in the movie, but he is just Russell Peters.
Do you think he's off to do a
Um,
bad accent on a stage and get paid millions of dollars to do it?
not millions, but get paid, yes, certainly.
All right, that's like that.
Because at the end, Jake Gyllenhaal, his character is like, "Here's $100 and something. I bet you can't make everyone on this train laugh," and he launches into a comedy bit, which I guarantee to you was just one of his jokes,
I mean,
like
I
one of his
suppose.
actual, where he's like, oh, the joke goes something to the effect of like, oh, I was with this girl who she was really bad at pronouncing. Like when we were having sex, basically,
Oh yeah, yeah.
she kept saying like get off, and he's like, no, my name is like I don't remember what the joke is, like Jeff off or Jeff or something like that. And I rolled my eyes and I'm like, that's a pretty standard Russell Peters joke.
I suppose if he was making millions of dollars, he wouldn't be taking a commuter train.
Exactly.
That's a fair point.
Exactly. That being said, I don't really have much else to say about this movie. It's a good movie, and those who haven't seen it should.
Check out source code. So for my first one, assume that's it. That's all you got for source code.
Oh, that's all I gotta say.
We're gonna do something similar because my second pick, we're gonna be here for a bit talking about it because there's so much. There's so much. But the first thing is District 9.
That's a good one.
There's always a movie where I'm like, you know what? I want to watch this movie and I need an excuse to do it. Let's find a way to do an episode of the podcast where we have to watch it. And it's so good. It still holds up. Like even just like like we'll do the political stuff in a second, but the special effects they're believable. Like the aliens are believable looking, and I think it's maybe because of their prawn like shape or whatever. But yeah, they interact with the world in a way that's believable, like you believe they're there. Like maybe it's the way the movie is shot because it's shot sort of documentary style for a lot of it, so it makes it feel it gives it a layer of authenticity. Maybe I don't know. Um,
It's been a long time since I've seen that one, but I remember really enjoying it and it being a very good movie.
it's one of those movies where what you get out of it, I think, and that's going to become a theme as I go through my stuff today. It depends on when you watch it, because when like that movie came out, it came out in like 2008. So you were 17, I'm 18, and I just remember loving the gore and just being like, oh, it's so brutal and it's so violent. And now I'm like, yeah, man, that gore is horrifying. Like it is upsetting. Like the bit,
Gratuitous.
yeah, well, not even just gratuitous. Like it's too real feeling. Like there's a bit there's the bit where for those of you who haven't seen District 9, it's a sort of mockumentary style movie about a guy named, I'm only going to say his first name because I'm going to butcher his last name, but it's Wilkes, oh no, I'm going to try Wilkes Demir or something like that. And he is an auditor or whatever for this big company that is essentially taking control of this apartheid district of aliens who have come to Earth, who have just sort of wound up, the ship has wound up on Earth for reasons that are never explained. And they have basically existed amongst the people for like 30 years or whatever.
As refugees.
As refugees. And it's a really good movie because it feels real. I said this, I was on Toon Talk with our friends on Toon Talk, and I said this there, but it's the truth. It feels like if aliens came to Earth and they were any degree less intelligent or less articulate than us, we would treat them like shit. We would treat them badly. We would treat them like other, because that's all humans ever do, is we only ever treat people like the other. And yeah, it's just, there's a very realistic, like, yeah, this is how humans would react to this. Not with excitement, but indifference.
I agree with that. Indifference and a need to be like, what can I get out of them?
Yeah. And my question is like, what is the deal with the prawns? Because they come and they're mostly harmless and they're aimless or whatever, but they've got like destructive weaponry. Like destructive. So why do they have such destructive weaponry that's capable of such mass harm? If they're merely, yeah, but the level to which they're decimating people with these alien weapons is not self-defense. They're not self-defense weapons. They're aggressive weapons.
I've always been of the opinion that likely, because they're a very bug-like race, likely they have a similar structure, economic structure. I don't know how you would word it. To like
socioeconomic.
Socioeconomic structure, to like a hive of bees or ants or what have you, where they would have the queen or queens, which would be at the top. You'd have the warrior ones, which would be more fierce and more battle hardy, and then the ones that we see in the movie, I think, are just they're the drones. Yeah. They're the lowest. They're the prawns, if you will.
Yeah, that's a big theory. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, they're just aimless workers. That's why they have no
direction.
No direction. But what's interesting is like how, on the one hand we haven't we as in humans in the movie they've taken the time to learn their language, though, because Wilkes speaks their language. He understands their language. And it's not even implied that, he understands their language because he's turning into one of them. No, he understands their language because he's learned it. And it's kind of wild because there's a moment in the movie where he goes and he meets with some Nigerians and he doesn't speak their language. He hasn't taken the time or put in the effort to learn their language. So he's willing to learn an extraterrestrial one, but not a terrestrial one. I thought that was kind of interesting.
That is interesting.
And yeah, he's such a fascinating. My one thing is, it needs to pick a style. Like, I do think that the idea that like in terms of within the universe itself, this is a documentary about Wilkes, right? That seems to be the idea, that we're watching this documentary that is both about Wilkes, the guy, but also about the aliens and their history on the planet as well. But the movie has to be a movie, so midway it becomes narrative. And then the talking heads in this fake documentary all of a sudden are like privy to information they have no way of knowing. So they know, for example, the talking heads know that the name of the alien that leaves at the end is named Christopher Johnson. But why would they know that? Like, why would like MNU, the people who are conceivably commissioning this documentary, would never say that? Why would they say that, right? So they have so there's just it conflicts. And I will say that the documentary stuff it's way more interesting to see it from that distance. Like, the most horrifying scene is, I alluded to it earlier, is where he's like half turned into the prawn, and they're forcing him to test the weapons, and they're all just like coldly and emotionally like cattle prodding him to force him to pull the trigger, and like talking about him as if he's this specimen who's not even there. And there's a moment where they pull out the prawn and they're like, shoot him, and he's like, no, I'm not gonna do it, I'm not gonna do it, and that is legitimately upsetting. Like, it is an
Hmm.
upsetting moment while just watching him, and it's made all the more distressing by the fact that it's shown through security footage.
Right.
And it's just really harrowing imagery of just he's like super sweaty and awful looking, and
He's been
yeah,
through hell.
he's been through hell. Yeah, and what was interesting is I always thought that it was the goo itself that was turning him into the prawn, but I read an interesting theory where it was like, no, it's not the goo that's turning him into a prawn. It's the when he gets slashed, he gets attacked by the guy who's helping the other prawn who's helping Christopher Johnson. His arm gets torn up, and that's after he gets sprayed with the goo. So the theory is that the goo is, because of all their technology, is biomechanical. The goo is also biomechanical. So the goo senses or reads whatever that he is injured and is trying to fix him, just trying to repair his cell damage, and thinks he's a fucked up prawn, which is why it's turning
Mhm.
him into a prawn, because it's trying to quote unquote heal him.
That makes sense.
Yeah, right. I was
That
like, oh,
makes
that does make a ton of sense. Yeah.
like yeah, that would absolutely make sense. And a lot of there's been this wouldn't be the first science fiction story which did that.
Right. Right.
So it's not out of line for
Right.
sure.
And yeah, there's like a lot of really cool. Like, one of my favorite shots in it is the one where he's in the mech, and like you see the heat waves, and you see the drop ship taking off, and it's him looking up at it. It's really cool. There's a lot of really good cinematography in it. The score is really good. Yeah, what's his name? I tried to look it up to see if he got any nominations or anything, but the guy playing Wilkes, whose name is completely escaping me, but he's really good. His performance is totally solid. Um, yeah, just
All
overall,
right.
it's like just a really, really good. I thought I said it on the podcast and they all went, but I always thought it was sort of underrated. My perception of it is it's underrated, but just really, really good. Just a really good movie that I
Yeah,
liked.
I remember liking it.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, before we get to the big my big chunky topic for the week.
Yeah, we have to do my big chunky topic first. Um, so the other pick that I did, and this is another example of I did an actual book report because I listened to the actual book as well as watched the movie. I watched Ready Player One.
Interesting. So, how distractingly different is it when you're watching and listening to it so close to like together?
Oh, it's very, very, very. I just there's so many things that the book there that the movie can't do.
Yeah.
Logistic like I understand why they had to they couldn't do certain things
Well, I mean,
that they
large
did in the
chunks of
book.
that book are literally just scenes from movies, so like it
Well,
would be
that's
a
yeah,
copyright nightmare.
that's exactly my point. Like there's thing like one of the gates they do Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Yeah,
Obviously, you can't do that,
yeah,
right?
and also a lot of the
Or
references in that book are so specific.
well, yeah, where it's like you can mention them, like you
Yeah,
can talk about a thing, but once you have to visually show like said thing, and so because of that, there's a bunch of stuff that needs to change, and then there's just also the time aspect where it's like you have to hit these beats a lot faster,
yeah,
so certain things just can't be like what they are in the book. So like for example, in the book. Wade Watts he can't leave his school planet.
yeah,
Like he cannot afford to leave his school planet. So whatever inciting incident that kicks it all off has to be on that school planet, right? But because and so in the book it's a D&D module, the Tomb of Horrors. But obviously they legally couldn't get the rights to use that.
yeah,
So they couldn't have that. So then they're like, okay, well what can we have in the movie which will kind of be the thing. So it's like because they can't have the thing where it's on the school planet, he can't be on the school planet, so he can't be as poor as he. But that doesn't make any sense because he's still living with his aunt in the trailer, so he's still dirt poor, and yet he can afford to be. So it's like they have to change the very nature of how the Oasis works in some aspects, and like there's a lot that's different. In the book they have the almanac, which is a book collection of everything how the I'm blanking on the character's name. Um, the one who made the contest, Halliday, that's it. Um, in the book, they like everybody has a copy of it. It's like on the all the internet and everything, and it's very easily to get. In the movie, it's like they've created this building, which is like a collection of every one of his memories and everything like that, and it's so different. So many. I could sit here all day talking about the things that are different. Now, that being said, the movie is still cool. Like, it still has references to the things that they could get access to. So, like, you get the DeLorean still. You get the Iron Giant still. You
Some
get
real who's who of
uh
stuff you recognize.
yeah, like you get the character from Halo, characters from what's her name from Overwatch, Tracer from Overwatch.
You
Um,
get a significantly better looking Metal Godzilla.
in the movie
Yeah.
than the book?
No,
No.
than the other live action Mecha Godzilla.
Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying. Yes. That being said, the like there so another change that I can list, which I don't really understand why they did it in the way they did in the movie. So I mean, I do, but I don't. A big thing that they change is for one thing in the book, because they have a lot more real estate. All of it takes place over like 5 or 6 years,
Yeah,
right? Like
that's the one thing I remember about that movie as a person who never read the book was being like, this feels like a story that takes place over a very long time that's been condensed
yeah.
into a very short time. It's really
It's
obvious.
another example of Ender's Game.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
It's another example of that where it's like they have to hit certain beats and they only have a certain amount of time
Yeah.
to do it. So they
Ender's
they
Game
gotta
is
they gotta get
very
shit
much like
going.
that, where it's like, yeah, if man, I completely forgot about Ender's Game, but yeah, it's very much like that, where it's like, yeah, it takes place over several years, and the movie doesn't have time to do that. Well,
Not even just
it doesn't have not that it
not
doesn't have
even
time. It's just hard to
not even
convey
just
that.
that. Yeah, well, I was gonna say not even just that it doesn't have time, but also when you have actual live action actors, they're not gonna age 7 years in the at least if
Yeah,
you're making your movie
the
correctly.
3 month
They're
production process. They're not going to age 7 years. Yeah, unless you're doing your movie badly, in which case they might age 7 years, but not
they
literally age 7 years.
exactly, and so it's like you can't really properly convey that in a movie
No, it's
form.
hard. It's really
So
hard.
a big thing that's different in the movie is that like pretty much right away, um,
That's why I never, whenever a
all
movie will age up a character, I'm like, I get that.
yeah. Pretty much right away in the movie, all of the high five, the main guys team up.
Yeah.
Whereas that is very much in a book where they're like in the book they're like, no, don't want to do that. Also in the movie, um uh uh the two Japanese characters, um for one thing, the one is significantly younger than he is in the book. So they actually age him down.
Interesting.
Um and the one character, Daito, I think he is, he gets murdered in the book. Doesn't get
Hmm.
murdered in the movie,
No, it's a
but he
Spielberg
gets murdered.
movie. Murder doesn't happen in those. That's
But
probably
but
not true.
but he gets murdered in the book.
I said
Um,
that out loud. I was like, no, that's
that's
probably not true.
also Daito and the other one, um, they're not friends with H
I'm gonna be real
in
honest
in
with
the
you,
in the
Jordan.
book.
You're just sort of saying names. None of this has any meaning to me.
This is more for anyone who's listening who might know what I'm talking
That is
about.
completely fair. That is completely fair. I'm just letting you
Um,
know. None of this means anything to me.
um, basically, the two characters in the book are not friends with the one character. Like
Gotcha.
not right away. Anyway, they don't know, and none of them know each other except for the main character knows H. Those are the
Interesting.
only two people that know each other at the
So
start.
here's
But
a
like
question:
they,
would this be
yeah,
better as a show? Say a Netflix
yeah,
show, 8 episodes.
yeah, yeah,
Interesting. Interesting.
because they would have more. That I find as I've
Okay.
gotten older,
Further addition.
let me just finish this. As I've gotten older, my opinion when it comes to book to movies, other than very rare exceptions, Usually I think it would be better as a show because you have more real estate and more time to actually do it properly.
So okay. Further add to this, live action or animation? Live action or animated? And to
Um,
make it even more interesting, what kind of animation style would you do?
I would do both. Much like how and okay. So the way that I would do it, if I had complete creative control,
Blend.
I would do a blend. I would do it where the live action scenes are still live, like the when they're outside of the
What?
Oasis.
Yeah.
I would do live action to really emphasize the reality of it all,
So similar to what they did in
and
the movie.
similar to what they did in the movie. Except instead of it being like the virtual reality stuff, instead of it being they try to do like a pseudo realistic 3D. I would probably do like an anime style.
That's what I figure. Like Sword Art Online is kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Where so
Yeah.
just to really make it feel different than reality, to
And then
make it feel like
I would do all the references. So like, uh, Iron Giant, for example, I would do him in the style of his movie,
yeah.
so they stand out. So it looks weird.
Basically, I would try and make it like a an anime. I don't know how to describe it. Like a kind of like what you did in Space Jam, where it's like you have the different styles, or not Space Jam, Who Framed Roger Rabbit,
Oh
or
yeah.
the Rescue Rangers one, where it's like you have the different style based on the different animation.
Yeah. That would be
Um,
cool. That'd be cool. You're right. I think it would work better because yeah, for someone who's again unfamiliar, I feel like I'm missing some, or it's like
oh,
maybe
you're missing a lot, and they also in terms of
feel like they
in
crammed two
terms of the
movies worth of.
movie, they really they just so like for example, there's reference. So what's funny is there's in the movie there's references to things from the book that just don't mean anything to you in the movie. So in the movie,
Oh, gotta love that.
the one of the minion characters that works for Sorrento, the big bad guy, IROC, he is a reference to a character in the book who is he's not he's not the character that he is in the movie. He's a completely different character.
Interesting.
Uh, he's played by T.J. Miller in the movie.
Oh yeah, that
Um,
guy. Yeah. The guy who you
I
never see what he looks like in real life. I think right.
Yeah, he's IROC is the name, like the name of his avatar.
Yeah,
Um,
he's supposed to.
in
It feels like. Sorry,
in the
let me just correct me if I'm wrong. He feels like he's supposed to be cool, but the movie makes him because it's T.J. Miller and it's the way he's playing him. Like he's like the guy who thinks he's cool and is acting cool, but is not supposed to be cool. But like it feels like he's supposed to be cool, but it's not how it's reading. Is he supposed to be
no,
cool?
no, he's not.
He's not supposed to be
He,
cool.
he is supposed to be exactly what you just described, a poser.
Oh, interesting. Okay, because the movie
He
paints
actually,
it like you're supposed to think he's cool.
in terms of characterization, they actually nailed it perfectly. It's just the context in which he exists
Fascinating.
is
That's
completely different.
fascinating.
So in the book, and we could I could spend all day talking about the differences, but in the book, IROC is a student at the school with H. Like he's a classmate of H, of the
See,
one
you keep saying at
of
the school, but that from what I recall, the character is not in school in the movie.
no, he's not. That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
It's
okay. So
completely
that's sort of a
different.
major plot point. Okay, gotcha.
That's a complete thing that they cut out from the movie. So another big difference between the movies and the movie and the book. In the movie, because they only have so much time, they only have to collect the three keys.
Right.
That's all they have to do to win the contest and then find the final thing that they put the key into. Whereas in the books, they find a key and then they have to find the gate and then they have to solve the puzzle in the gate
Yeah,
and
you're
then they get
right.
the next key.
This absolutely sounds like it would be much better as a TV show.
They get the next key, they do the next gate. So like the first gate, and the other thing is like each of the gates. So like the first one is Halliday's favorite game. The second one is his favorite movie.
Yeah.
And then the third one is like a combination of the two things
Yeah, this
basically.
absolutely sounds like it would benefit from long form storytelling.
And so like but you have to find the you have to find the bronze key first, so you have to know where to look, right? Whereas in the movie, it's just that race.
Yeah.
Like everybody just knows that it's just that race, and you have to figure out how to win that race. So everybody knows exactly where to look to start off. Whereas
Yeah.
it's kind of a big deal in the book that Wade Watts is the first person to figure this out, because it's like it's been 5 years that nobody has found anything, and he's at school, and basically he figures out that that what they're looking for um is like an actual physical created thing of the Tomb of Horrors, a D&D module that Halliday played when he was younger, like in high school or whatever. And so then he also figures out, basically connective puzzle, finds out that the name of the planet that he's on, Ludus, has like a triple meaning kind of thing, and that's when he pieces together that the first place is on the planet, like
Gotcha.
his school planet.
So what?
Um,
So from what I'm hearing is, um,
IROC is so he has one friend basically who is H, who is like this really really impressive first person shooter like player kind of thing, right? But
mhm,
they're friends because they met on a chat room, yada yada yada. And IROC, so in the book they have these chat rooms, and the main character Wade Watts and H hang out in H's chat room all the time.
right.
And IROC is a student that H, like they're in the same class, and he also hangs out
S-
in that chat room,
So
and
what
he's like a
I'm
poser.
so what I'm hearing is that this would be much better as a high school drama on Netflix.
I don't know about high school drama, but it would certainly be better on a show
Yeah, it
basis.
was just, I mean, your high school is a major backdrop for a thing. You could have each episode be about solving part of the mystery. You have a core cast of characters. Yeah, this thing is perfect for the CW.
I mean, I just it would just be better as a show because you have more. Well, whatever network or whatever picks it up, it
Oh,
would
that
be better.
reminds me.
Would be better as a show because you have more real estate.
Um,
Same as like Ender's Game
yeah,
would be
yeah,
better as a show.
absolutely. I think they are bringing that back as a show. Or they,
Oh.
I think I saw something about a show somewhere at some point. But real quickly, speaking of the CW, just to go back to our what's going wrong with Velma. We never talked about, or maybe we did. I don't remember. They announced they're doing another live action Scooby Doo show for Netflix.
Why?
I don't know, but the most interesting part of it, and it might not be a name you recognize immediately, but you know his work, and it will give you an immediate vibe for what the show's gonna be. But it's being made by Greg Berlanti. The name not sound familiar? Okay,
No.
Greg Berlanti. You don't know him. If you know him, you know his work. You know the Flash TV show.
Oh yeah.
You know
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Arrow TV show.
Okay, so he's just doing another CW show.
Yeah, so it's basically just another CW show,
So
just
it's
for
gonna
Scooby
so it's
Doo.
gonna be young hot detectives.
Pretty much. Anytime you see Greg Berlanti, yeah, like for example, oh, what did he make recently that was like, yeah, that's very much. Oh, have you seen clips from that Gotham Knights show
No, I
that
don't
Mission
think so.
Collins is on? Ah, did you hear about the Powerpuff Girl show that they were gonna make for the CW?
I don't follow a lot of what's gonna be on the
Ah,
CW, so no.
those are all Greg Berlanti stuff. But yeah, it's gonna be like the Flash or Arrowverse basically. Anyway. Sorry,
Um,
Ready Player One.
I'm gonna
Let Greg
I'm gonna
Berlanti
I'm
make Ready Player One. That's my point.
I'm I'm gonna wrap up because I could spend all day talking about the differences between the two. There's a
Yeah,
lot.
we don't
You've
have
you've
time.
taken you've taken like a 16-hour book, like, I think it's 15 hour book, and condensed it to like 2 hours or whatever, however long Ready Player One is. So obviously there's gonna be a lot of stuff that's different and cut and not the same. And honestly, the only reason why it kind of bothers me a little bit is because the screenplay was written by Ernest Cline, the person that wrote the book. So the changes that are too, in my opinion, too drastic are kind
Yeah.
of inexcusable.
I mean, it's sort of why I'm forgiving of changes on that of stuff on the series of unfortunate events show, because yeah, the guy who wrote the books was writing the show, so you're like, whatever, it's his shit, he can do whatever he wants with it. Um,
Um,
my thing
one
is
last
when
thing.
changes are arbitrary, like when there's a reason like facilitated from by going, because like now I'm far more understanding. When I was in my youth, I would be really harsh on it, but now I'm like, yeah, I understand changes need to be made to facilitate the adaptation process. Like what
Yeah.
works on page doesn't always work on screen. Like I understand that, but it's when
Yeah,
changes are
same.
arbitrary for the sake of changing them. Now that's when it's like, why? What does this add to the story? What is this? What is this adding?
And that's where I say, like, I understand why you couldn't do a bunch of stuff. Like, well, again, one of the gates is literally just them acting out Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't just do that. Like, you can't.
Isn't one of the gates they literally do scenes from war games?
War games, they do stuff
Yeah.
from which in the movie, their version of that
Is when they
or
do The
their
Shining.
reference to that is that yeah, they do stuff from The Shining. So it's like they did the best they could, but just because of
I mean, that book is an IP nightmare, so I get it.
yeah, like there's
I
only so
fully
much you
understand it.
so they did all the stuff from Warner Brothers that they
Yeah,
could
that they
do.
could legally do exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. So it's like I get it. And for what they were what they were trying to accomplish, I don't think they did a bad job.
it's funny.
It was just a very uphill battle. I will say though, one of the things that I like most about the world, like most am scared of the most, of the world of Ready Player One just generally, is that it's not that far off.
No, it's really not. It's really not.
Like it's not out of the realm of possibility,
No, it's really
and
not.
and 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 I very much believe that
I mean, Zux is trying to make
in
an oasis, so
in the future, they will have indentured servitude options for our corporate overlords, so that we can help pay back the millions that we'll owe.
it's true. So, before we wrap up for Ready Player One, I want to ask you a question and I want to make a point. I'll make my point first. When you first said that you felt that no book should ever be made into a movie again, and that it should only be made into television shows that are short or like reasonable length, I was like, that's crazy. We should be allowed to have movie-based book adaptations. But you know what? Today, you've made a compelling case. I don't know that I agree. I do think that sometimes you can make it into a movie, but
I
I'm
I
starting to see.
don't
I'm starting to see your point of view.
to be fair, I don't always think that it shouldn't be made into a movie, but I think read the source material, and if it's 16 hours long, maybe don't try to squeeze that into 2 hours.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. And then my question is, what's better, the book?
Or make it into a trilogy.
Yeah. True. Instead of trying to squeeze one book into one movie, make 3 books out of one movie or 2 books out of one movie. That's also fair. I mean, but do it in a way that's less egregious and awful than the Harry Potter movies did. So then I guess since this is an adaptation, let's ask the question we will ask of all adaptations: which is better, the book or the movie?
Oh, the book.
Fair,
Absolutely the book.
fair
Hands down
enough.
the book.
Fair
Any
enough.
day the book. In fact, anyone who has only watched the movie and did enjoy the movie, go watch or read
I
and or
love
listen.
I love the qualifier of if you hate the book, if you hate the movie, you're gonna fucking hate the book. So don't even
If
bother.
you don't if you don't like well, no, that's not true. If you don't like the book because you think that it's too fast paced or you have legitimate concerns, the book might actually turn your mind around
Yeah.
because it fills in a lot of those gaps.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay.
Um,
Was that it for
but
Ready Player
no,
One?
absolutely, Ready Player One, the book is better than the movie. That's all I have to say.
Have you?
We
Have
could
you?
talk all day about it.
Is it okay? Okay. Wait, so one more thing. Is it true that Ready Player Two is bad?
Not as good as the first
I
one.
heard
I
it
don't
was
know that I'd
bad.
say. I don't know that I'd say it's bad.
I've
It's
I've heard it's bad.
we'll talk. I'll talk. I'll tell you about it later.
Okay. So for me, John, I'm just gonna give you that heads up right now. This is definitely gonna be a YouTube video. This next section, because I got a lot to say, Jordan. I got a lot to say, because for my second pick, I watched them all, Jordan. I did it. I did the challenge. I did the Michael Bay Transformer movie challenge. It's a new challenge, Jordan. It's a new
You
challenge.
you psychopath.
It's Jordan. It's a new
You
challenge.
you
It's a new
you
YouTube TikTok challenge.
masochistic, insane psychopath.
Jordan,
Please continue.
I did the Michael Bay. Jordan, it's the new challenge I'm calling the Michael Bay Transformers challenge, where you watch all the Michael Bay Transformers movies in like a short period of time over the span of 2 days. Because, and I made a TikTok video about this earlier, Jordan, but if you have any love, reverence, or nostalgia in any way for those movies, I encourage you to sit down and watch all 5 of them in a row, because that will thoroughly stomp out any love you have remaining for this franchise. Because even the first one, which and it's funny because we talk about how like it depends on when in your life you watch a movie. Like we first watched the first Transformers movie, the first Michael Bay one. I was 17 and you were 16, right? Like very different mindset and space in life. Where like
I remember really liking that first
right,
one.
but like watch it now as a 8-year-old adult. It's awful. It's like it's not that it's like it's the worst one, but like I'm okay. I'm not gonna go through each of these and summarize them because we'd be here all day. Jordan's already seen these movies, so I don't need to do that. And if you're watching this or listening to this, chances are you've seen them. If you haven't,
Or are aware.
they're on Paramount Plus. Have fun. I just described this as not being fun, but have fun. Have fun. Because what an awful experience, man. Like watching them back to back. It's funny because my favorite okay, I've got so many thoughts. We're gonna jump around a bunch here. There's no avoiding it. But my favorite podcast, The Weekly Planet. Shout out to The Weekly Planet. One of the hosts on that podcast, Nick Mason, coined a term he called Golden Bay Time, which he referred to as the moment where it feels like everything is wrapping up and you think that the movie is about to end and then it just goes on for another 45 minutes. And the first time I heard him describe this phenomenon, I was like, that can't be a real thing. That can't be a real thing. And then I'm watching these movies and like to jump ahead, the fourth one, no, I think it might have been the third one. I felt like it was over. Like it felt like, oh, this is the end, and then I opened it up, and there was somehow still an hour and 10 minutes left. There was still an entirely separate movie that had to happen still. It was incredible, and it was like they did a series of videos called Caravan of Garbage, where they did what I did. They watched all of the movies. They did it over the course of 5 weeks. I did it over the course of 2 days. But by the end of it, they were just like exhausted. Like they were.
Like I said, you're a psychopath.
I feel like I've aged like 10 years in like a week for having done this to myself.
Only 10? Wow,
like,
that's impressive.
And what's incredible about them is like they're not devoid of good ideas. It's just they don't know when to stop. Because like they don't know when to stop to the point of them not making any sense, right? Because I'm just gonna do this for the first one, because if I do them for all of them, I'll go insane and we'll be here all day. But just for the first one, the big central plot point of it is that the Allspark crashed into the Arctic, right? And Megatron went looking for the Allspark. He flew off of Cybertron and went looking for the Allspark. Stop me at any point if I'm wrong, if I'm missing any details. He crash lands.
It's been years since I've seen it. I'm gonna take you at your word.
He crash lands into the Arctic, looking for the Allspark, just like a couple of feet away from the Allspark. Right? Freezes. Sam's grandpa finds him, and the location of it gets like imprinted onto his glasses. The information then the government finds Megatron, whom they dub MBE-1, and they transport him from the Arctic to a random military base, him along with the gigantic Allspark, to a base in America, all while managing...
Isn't it inside the Hoover Dam?
Right. So they managed to move both Megatron, and he says that it was constructed around them. So... Sorry, I just got a beep. Oh, sorry. Anyway, distracting message. Anyway, yeah, they say that they constructed Hoover Dam around. So they somehow have managed to move Megatron while keeping him frozen and the cube to where Hoover Dam is, and constructed the dam around him. And they've managed to keep him frozen for, like, they say 50 years, where he hasn't tried to escape. The Decepticons haven't attempted to locate him, and they haven't managed to break free. From which they have managed to reverse engineer from him all of modern day technology, microchips, whatever, which is clearly a reference to Area 51 in Roswell, right? But that doesn't make any sense, because why hasn't Megatron? Because at the end, they take the cube, and then Megatron just kind of breaks free. Like, it's never indicated
But
that it's
isn't
as a result of the cube moving. And even if it was, why would them moving the cube and him make him wake up if it was just about moving the cube?
wasn't it now correct me if I'm wrong because it's been literally years since I've seen this movie because I refuse to do that to myself. But isn't it that I think it was Bumblebee. He touches it, and that's what makes it shrink.
Right.
And then doesn't that like send out like a pulse?
No, it just shrinks, and then he takes the cube, and then all of a sudden it's indicated that
I
the Decepticons are on their way. It's never explained. At
I
least from what I saw. To be fair,
I
it failed the phone test, so I might have missed it. But I've seen this
I,
movie
I
enough
seem
that I feel confident to be like, no, they never connect the two.
I seem to remember it being that yeah, when he first touches the cube and causes it to shrink, it sends out the
Okay,
pulse, and
okay,
that's what
okay, but fine.
that's
But
that's
then
what that's what causes
But they managed
Megatron
to
to
keep
wake
him
up.
frozen. They managed to keep Megatron, a 50-foot tall robot, frozen to transport him from the Arctic to Hoover Dam. Like what I'm saying is it's too many things. Just make it so the cube crashed where Hoover Dam was. They constructed a Hoover Dam around it, and then have it so all technology is reverse engineered from the cube, and then make it so that the Decepticons finally located the cube, and the whole movie is you're just waiting for Megatron to show up. He's just waiting to get there, and then he shows up at the end because they've
I
located the
mean,
cube. Like, having
I mean,
both him
I,
and the cube together is not necessary. It's just
I,
extra shit.
I don't necessarily disagree. I again I remember it being like basically the idea that the cube is emitting a shit ton of radiation or
Right,
energy or
but
whatever.
Megatron
And that's
doesn't
why
need to be there.
let me finish. And that's where like when they drop the cube at one point and the vending machine comes to life and like
Yeah.
all the machines in the area come to life.
Oh, that's
So
another
yeah,
thing.
to me the idea is supposed to be basically that like once they condense it, it starts actually emitting the energy that
No,
it
no.
usually does,
I,
and that's I again headcanon, and that's what causes Megatron to wake up.
Sure, but what
Um,
I'm saying is Megatron doesn't need to be there. Like, just get rid of Megatron and have it where the cube
sure,
is still
sure,
gigantic. It still crashes in Hoover Dam. It's all
I
exactly the same. It's just
I get
Megatron's not there.
I understand. I'm simply addressing it as it is.
Like, yeah,
Not. We're not going to spend 2 hours sitting here and go through these movies and all the ways that they could be fixed because there's not enough
oh,
time
no, no,
on the
no. We're
planet.
just doing the first one.
Um,
I'm just pointing out shit in the first one. Other than a few things in the later ones, I want to point out. But I just the nitpicky shit. I just have to do with the first one because the other thing that drives me crazy is that fucking cube. Because why is every transformer it creates evil, immediately evil? So are the Autobots just an outlier then? Why are they good? And it's a thing that carries on into the next movie where there's a shard of the cube that brings a machine to life and it's immediately evil. So wait, are they the Decepticons the default? The Autobots seem to indicate that they are in fact not the default and they are psychopathic. So are the Autobots like not the default? Like so is it like you have to go through training and not it just doesn't I just have so many questions about the nature of Transformers existence, which leads me to my next point, which is the next movie. I'm done with the individual nitpicks other than to say apparently in the second one Transformers are grown in sacks. They're grown in sacks, Jordan.
I don't know. All I remember of the second one is that they ruined the
And
Devastator,
like part
and as soon as they did that, every other grievance that I have with that movie drops away because they ruined my favorite
it's
Transformer.
it's not so much a grievance as it is wait. So the cube can create them, but like literally, there's a bit at the beginning where Starscream is growing Transformers in sacks, like gooey sacks. They burst out. It's like they need Energon, otherwise they'll die. Oh, and those movies just forget. In the first one, don't. The thing about those movies is clearly Michael Bay doesn't know a thing about Transformers because Starscream goes from being what he's like, not being what he's like in the comic or in the cartoon to being what he's like in the cartoon. Also, the Decepticons randomly swap between Cybertronian and English randomly and interchangeably. It doesn't make any sense. These movies don't make any sense, Jordan. They don't make any sense. Also, an interesting thing that I noticed is how, okay. I hated the third one significantly less this time. It still bothers me that Optimus is a psychopath who threatens to murder people on a dime. He says, I'll kill you or some variation thereof, like way too much. Just way too much. Like there's a moment in the fourth one where he just kills Kelsey Grammer like he's nothing. He's just like bam, and he vaporizes him instantly. You're like, whoa. Where was I going with this? Oh, Cade Yeager, Mark Wahlberg's character, and Shia LaBeouf, Sam Witwicky, are so fascinating because they're inverses. They're total inverses of each other. Like all Sam does is run away from shit and scream and whine. He doesn't really take any proactive action, and he doesn't really help the Transformers in any significant or really any sort of meaningful way. He just happens to own a pair of glasses that some guy has, right? He's not really included in any meaningful way. Whereas Cade Yeager, he's all action, baby. He's got his own space gun. He's fighting the Transformers in hand-to-hand combat. And so it's just so interesting to me how they're like completely opposite to each other, and obviously Cade Yeager is worse. Like he's awful. He's an awful human being. Transformers. Where was I going with the Transformers? Oh, going to the worst one. The worst Transformers. The worst Transformers is the fourth one. I used to say it was the third one because Optimus executes that guy at the end.
Yeah, that got you very angry for many years.
Yeah, I definitely remember being pissed off about that, like, out the theater. I was like, Optimus would never execute a man.
And then, me and our friend were not nearly as upset about it, which just upset you more.
Yeah, which I don't get. Now it does.
Because going back and watching the animated movie, the 1980s one, Optimus very much would have executed Megatron point blank.
No, he would have beat him in a fair hand-to-hand combat.
He beat him in a fair hand-to-hand combat, got his gun while Megatron was pleading for his life, and was like aiming his gun at him, and is like, "Why shouldn't I kill you?"
Yeah, but he doesn't though. He questions the morality.
He doesn't, only because Megatron fucking doesn't give him the chance.
No, see, he takes a moment to pause. Where if that were Michael Bay Optimus, he wouldn't have even hesitated. That's the difference in morality between actual Optimus and Michael Bay Optimus. He had to pause for morality.
One would argue that if he hadn't paused for the morality, he wouldn't have died.
Maybe. Sure, but that's not the point. The point is he has that morality. He has that sense of like, no, he wouldn't just point blank execute two people in the span of 2 minutes. Like,
I'm just saying maybe he should have.
Maybe he should have, yeah, but he wouldn't have. That's the point. It's out of character for him. It's like, yeah, he just, and also Optimus would scream, I'll kill them or I'll kill you nearly as much as he does in these movies.
It's not out of character for that Optimus.
Yeah, that is true. He he executes, like, from the second movie, there's a point where he, like, rips off, like, he hook rips off a guy, like, a Decepticon's face.
He is gratuitously violent.
There is some gratuitous robot carnage in these movies. But the thing
violence.
The thing that frustrates me about the fourth one is that's another one where it's like too many ideas. Where it's like there's like one idea in here which is interesting, which is the idea that the humans have developed enough arrogance that they now believe that they no longer need the Transformers, and the bad guys are now humans. Like I think that's a genuinely interesting idea where, like, yeah, they're humans who have created their own Transformers, and like get rid of like the space seed and get rid of Transformium, and just have it where it's like, yeah, there's a scientist and he's created Transformers, and he's trying to be like, these are human Transformers, we created them, we don't need them, have them fight Decepticons and beat Decepticons or whatever, and then have it at the end where in the final conflict is just the Decepticons are back, baby, and they're and they've come back to life, and Megatron is actually Galvatron or whatever, and do the twist at the end and have it where that's the big conflict. They fight, Transformers punch Transformers at the end. But to me, that idea of like human arrogance, like thinking that they can build their own Transformers only to find out that they can't, they just turn out to be Decepticons because you're using Decepticon metal, I don't think that's uninteresting. It's just in a
Yeah.
movie that's 2 hours and 40 minutes long. That's the one where, yeah, literally, like they resolve this plot line, and you're like, oh, the movie's over. And you look at the runtime, and there's still, you're like, how? How is there an hour and 10 minutes left? It doesn't make any sense.
I also would have made it so that, because from what I remember, the robot in that one just looks evil from the onset.
Yes, he just
Um,
looks like Megatron. Yes.
I would have gone what is it? Transformers Armada was the one with the evil Optimus, the one that's like
Robots in Disguise.
black, yeah, the one that's black and gray, and he looks exactly like Optimus, but he's evil.
Yeah, I would have done
Um,
that.
I would have, I would have done that, and then have it be where it hits a point where, yeah, the Decepticons show up, and that human transformer isn't evil necessarily, but he's not an Autobot either, and he's sort of in between the two, and he helps whoever he wants to help.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing. Like, that movie, the second one does kind of introduce the idea that the alien robots, like, that's Autobots or Decepticon. Like, you could interchange sides if you want to. Like, you could just be like, I don't want to be a Decepticon. I'm gonna go be an Autobot. You can just, it's not like hardwired into you. You can change sides on which I believe is a plot point in one of the episodes of the animated series. I think there's a big jet guy who starts off as a Decepticon.
Yeah.
I
There
remember
is.
that
I
episode.
remember his name, but yeah, and then he becomes an Autobot.
Yeah. I think it's Jetfire. I think it's the one from, I'm pretty sure it's the one from that they end up
That
using in the movie.
name sounds
I
familiar,
think
so
it might be.
I'm inclined to believe you, but I'm too
And
lazy
then
to look it
and
up.
then finally, oh, the other thing, before I talk about the fifth movie, because Jordan, the fifth movie, that's the one where you're like, I feel like I just did like a pound of blow, and like I've been out all night, it's not just, oh my god. Anyway,
A fugue
a
state.
thing these movies continue to add on to. It's the one thing they yes and on movie to movie, and it's the one thing they shouldn't, because it progressively makes less and less sense. But like, they continue to be like, oh no, Transformers have actually been here earlier than you think. And it progressively makes less and less sense. So like the first one's like, yeah, the first time Transformers are around is when the guy finds Megatron. He's the first Transformer they find. You're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, right? Yeah, okay. And then the second one's like, no. There's actually a bunch of Transformers who came here back in like ancient tribal times. They're the fallen. They're all the primes or whatever. But it's like they're like tribal people, so they didn't know that they were aliens or whatever, right? So that's
They
why.
were pretty easy to fool.
Yeah, right. So that's why we don't remember them. Okay, right? And then the third one's like, oh, no. Actually, one of them crash landed on the moon, and we found it. Neil Armstrong found it, who is in this movie, by the way. Neil Armstrong found it, and the Decepticons, through a government conspiracy, which they control, and a human who over the course of multiple generations, have kept up the secret where they're hiding the fact that this Autobot spaceship is on the moon, all in order to build a space bridge. And so it's implied that there's a bunch of humans who have known since the 60s that the Transformers have been on Earth, which makes the government in the first movie look progressively more incompetent. It's like, wait, so everyone on Earth knew that Transformers existed, except for you, apparently, American government? And so then the fourth one is like, oh, no. The Transformers actually came here like much earlier, around the time of the dinosaurs, and they dropped a seed which created the material that all the Transformers are made out of. And that happened. And then the fifth one, finally the fifth one.
You're hurting my brain.
The fifth one has been like, the Transformers have been around since medieval times, and Merlin is a real guy, and he had a magic staff, which was a Transformer, which he could use to control a Transformer dragon to win battles.
Did I watch that one?
We did watch that one.
That does not sound familiar.
We
to
did
me.
watch that one with our mutual friend. Our mutual friend insisted we watch it, and we drove out to Richmond to watch it in IMAX.
Man,
And we were exhausted walking out of it.
I don't remember that at all, and that's probably a good thing.
I
Continue.
I remember leaving during the climax of it to go to the bathroom, being like, "Oh, it must almost be during Golden Bay time." Being like, "It must almost be over. I'm gonna miss the ending." And running back, and then it going on for another 45 minutes.
Like
Um,
you're doing a rapid fire of 5 movies, and I feel like we've been talking about this forever. I
right,
can only I can only imagine what the movies felt
right.
like.
So that one makes the case that Transformers have been around since medieval times, and that they've been around working secretly with humans, and that Bumblebee, even though the movie indicates that that was the first time he'd been to Earth, the first one. He's been around since the 1940s, and he helped defeat the Nazis, which once again makes the government in the first movie look fucking incompetent. And so that movie makes the case that there's actually a secret society called the Wiccans, and that Sam was part of that secret society, which doesn't that I guess the implication that his grandpa was in the secret society of people who all knew and protected the secret of Transformers, which A doesn't make a lick of sense if you remember that character. B, so wait, was his dad in the secret society? Because his dad sure didn't seem to know anything about Transformers when he discovered about them. Was Sam? Is it a coincidence that their family name is named after this? Like, this movie does make so once again to call back to
I, I I need you to stop. You're hurting my brain.
um so
Ah,
so it turns out that in that movie Mark Wahlberg is like a knight, like there's like five like all like Transformers who all look like knights, and Mark Wahlberg is one of them, and there's a girl who she's the descendant of Merlin, and it's her destiny to use the staff to control the dragon so that they can stop um uh Quintessa, who is a reference to the Quintessons, who is the creator of the Transformers. I cannot believe you don't remember this.
no,
She wants to
I've
bring.
no memory of
I
this.
on the one hand can believe. Okay, there's a really funny. I watched in preparation for this. I watched Lindsay Ellis's series, The Whole Plate, which is a film studies course utilizing Transformers. And one of the videos was called "Why Don't You Remember Anything from Transformers," which I'm going to send you later because you'll find it funny now. Because yeah, you don't. You've seen it and you don't remember it. It's kind of wild.
I have no memory of this.
And there's a little
Like
person-sized
it's
transformer who's a psychopath named Cogman.
it's like
Who's a
you're
head.
speaking Greek.
But anyway, so I'm sort of describing this, summarizing it, just so I could be like, so yeah, this woman is the descendant of Merlin. She has it's her destiny to use the staff to control this dragon transformer, and so that they could stop Quintessa from bringing Cybertron to Earth and having it absorb Earth's energy. Because spoiler alert, Earth is actually secretly Unicron,
What?
and
No.
and so
Stop it.
so Nick Mason from the Weekly Planet, he has a theory that this movie was originally like a version of the King Arthur, because and like all the knight transformers were just like magical knights, and Cogman, the person-sized transformer, who they say is a headmaster, but his theory is that he was just like a magical suit of armor. And it was like a fantasy, kind of modern fantasy story that involved Merlin, and they just slapped transformer shit on top of it, fucked whether or not it made sense or not. And it's super weird. There's like this really long opening sequence with this girl who's like basically Rey from Star Wars. Like, she even has like a little BB-8 who just leaves the movie so that the Merlin shit can happen. It's super fucking weird. But yeah, it's like as these movies go on, the more they attempt to be like Transformers have been here the whole time, the less they make sense. They here's what I will say about the first two. They at least feel like they're putting effort in. like like it feels like they're trying, which by the fifth one I'm like, I can't. I want I hate myself. I hate Michael Bay, even though I'm sure he's probably a decent person. I hate every actor in this. Oh, the one thing we didn't mention, the one thing we didn't reference, Jordan. Yes, in context, that Romeo and Juliet thing is fucking weird.
Romeo and Juliet.
You know how the guy has the laminated card saying how it's okay for him to have sex with Mark Wahlberg's
Yeah.
daughter.
The thing that didn't need to exist, shouldn't exist,
And
and is
what
very,
makes
very
it
dumb.
even worse is not only is that joke in there, but that joke is the payoff to like 3 other jokes where they mention the fact that she's 17. They go out of their way to mention it so to facilitate that specific joke, which is so fucking weird. Jordan, it's so weird. I think people have talked about how weird it is, but like I legit today I saw a video of somebody who thinks these movies are of somebody who thinks that these movies are good, like legitimately, and I'm like,
I mean,
how can you
that
say
person's
that?
wrong.
How can you say that when one of them has an extended sequence of a guy being like, "It's okay for me to sleep with your underage daughter"? That's weird. Like it's so weird. Like,
Yeah,
can we not
yeah,
all
it is.
agree how weird that is?
Oh, it's weird.
It's
It's a choice
so
that I
weird.
I've never once understood that choice. I still don't understand that choice. I will never understand that choice.
But here's where I will end this, and I have to end this, Jordan, because we have other shit to talk about. There are some great lines in there that are funny, like especially in the first one when with Anthony Anderson, where he's like, "I ate the whole plate," or
Oh, plate.
my first little favorite from the fourth one where he cracks the Bud Light, like insurance. You think I got insurance? There's a spaceship. You think you got insurance? Honey, give me my space gun. It's funny. Like there's and it's not to say it's like there's cool shit. Like there's cool. It's one of those movies where it's like, yeah, when you like watch these scenes isolated on YouTube, like some of them are cool, like some of them are fun. Like yeah, the bit where Optimus like has 2 hooks and like tears a guy's face off is dope. Like there's like it's way more concerned with like looking badass than it is with being faithful or respectful to its source material. It really is like he saw what the premise was, which was bad robot versus good robot. He saw vaguely what the names were and kind of what some of them looked like, and that was maybe it. That was pretty much it. And then they just kind of gave him names because names are meaningless. Because yeah, you pointed out Devastator in his robot testicles, but also there's parts of Devastator. I can't remember one of the Constructicons who makes up Devastator. His name is attributed to an incorrect Transformer in the first one. I think it's Bone Crusher.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, Bone Crusher, the one that in the first one Optimus tackles on the freeway.
Oh
That
yeah. Yeah,
that
yeah.
scene's sick. Like I say, there are some sick shots of like that just look cool. Like there's that one in the second one that at one point was like the biggest on-screen explosion of all time in the desert, where it just yeah man the shit looks fucking cool. Like there and I will say it's funny. So I said I was gonna wrap up, but um I remember one more point I wanted to make, which was that a lot of people give those movies shit for its over love of the army, but I will say that the most interesting parts of those movies are watching the army tactically, for me anyway, this time around, was watching the army guys tactically interact with the Transformers. Where it's like in the first one, you see how they tactically operate as a unit just without Transformers. And there's that bit where they're being chased around the desert by Scorponok. Where it's like, I'd watch an entire movie where it's just army guys, like it's Predator, but with the Transformer. And it's a bunch of army guys being hunted in the desert by a Decepticon. Like, that would be kind of fun. That'd be a fun movie just by itself. But later on, when all the army guys and the Autobots team up and they now have Nest, the team, like you getting to see them tactically work in like Ironhide and Ratchet and those guys and seeing them integrate them with the team was kind of interesting. And I'm like, yeah, I would watch a movie where it's just the army guys and the Autobots and you cut out Sam because Sam is quite often the least interesting part of those movies. Like it's just I would watch that. That would actually be interesting to me. But overall, to wrap up, finally, just exhausting. I feel tired. I feel like I aged. I feel like I'm older and angrier as a result of having watched those awful movies. And I hate
And
myself.
wiser.
No, dumber. Dumber. Much
Uh,
dumber. Significantly
mm,
stupider. Like I've taken
I
a
understand.
hammer and bashed I'm upset with myself, but by movie 3 I commit for the bit. You know,
So you're not mad, you're just
I'm
disappointed.
disappointed with myself, but I'm happy because we're gonna talk about next week's topic later. But I'm excited for it. Anyway, that was Transformers. That was the Bayformers. That is most definitely going to be a YouTube video.
Hey,
Look forward to that with
hey,
edits.
hey.
What is your first one that you had not seen, Jordan?
Spaceballs.
What did you think about Spaceballs?
I mean, it made me laugh, which as a comedy is probably the goal.
It's a
There's
funny
definitely
movie.
there's definitely funny stuff in there. It kind of makes me think of like if you took Monty Python and combined it with Star Wars.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's
where it's like the point isn't really the overarching story. Like that's not the point of it.
the
The point
individual
of it is
jokes.
the individual jokes, right? And there's some individual jokes in there which are genuinely funny.
Yeah.
There's references in there to a lot of things. So like one of the references was to Planet of the Apes, where it's like the Spaceball people. They crash land on the planet, and it's the maid, and she's got the Statue of Liberty thing, and it's a callback to the "damn you all to hell," and
That's funny.
the apes ride up on the horse, and they're like, "Oh, it's the Spaceballs." Well, there goes the planet.
That's so funny.
And they're
Uh,
wearing like it's like the costume. They're wearing straight the costume from the '80s movie. It looks just like it.
that's so
It's
funny.
it's such a faithful one.
It's I
There's
mean Spaceballs is very much it's that era of the like they're not parodies. I wouldn't like a satire. Like where it's like it's satirizing a genre or a type of movie. Like this, Robin Hood Men Tights, Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, where it's like it's not
which
specifically parodying. I mean, in this case, it kind of is because it's Star Wars,
in
but
this
still.
case it is, but it's not just a parody of Star Wars. It's also got jokes that are poking fun at like Star Trek, Alien, Wizard of Oz. I'm reading right off the Wikipedia here. 2001: A Space Odyssey, Planet of the Apes, and Transformers.
What are your okay? Okay, we'll narrow it down if it becomes. What are your top three favorite jokes?
Uh,
We could just do one if three's too hard.
I can think of two in particular.
Okay, let's do two then. We'll do two.
Um,
That's a fair
uh,
compromise.
the one of the funnier ones, in my opinion, is so the Spaceball people are chasing the Han Solo and Chewbacca parody, and I don't remember the character's name, so I'm not even gonna try. Um, and the Han parody, Chewbacca parody, and Princess Leia parody are in their Winnebago Millennium Falcon parody, and they're in hyperspace, and the Spaceball people are chasing them, and they go into like an even faster mode above that, and so then they've overshot our parody heroes, and and then Rick Moranis' character, the Darth Vader parody, is basically like put the brake on, and the Switch is like never ever use this, and they do, and he goes flying forward, and his head crashes into the front console. Actually, I thought of a third favorite moment too, um, and uh, and like he stands up and he's like, "Ah, ah, ah," like he's like concussion kind of brain, like his
That's
helmet is
funny.
destroyed. Um, so that's a funny one. Uh, my second favorite one was when the bad guy, the Rick Moranis people, find out that or find out the password for the Druidia because they've been trying to get that so they can suck all the air out of it and yada yada yada. And so they're like, okay, it's time for our ship to transform. And one of them is like, that's right, it's a transformer. And it transforms something like that anyway. And it transforms into a gigantic maid with a vacuum, which it then places over the whole, and it starts sucking the air out of the planet. And I'm like, that's
That's
funny.
funny.
Um, and then another funny, a lot of the funniest moments, which I find are all ones that have Rick Moranis.
Oh yeah,
Um,
fair. Yeah.
so another one is they're trying to figure out where the parody heroes have gone. And the one character is like, well, like why don't we just pop in the movie to figure it out?
Oh, is that the one where he's looking at the back of his own head and he turns around?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. I've
yeah.
seen that clip. I've seen that.
And
That's
he's
really
like,
what I was gonna mention if you didn't.
he's like, he's basically like, we can't. It's not. We're still making it right now. We can't. And like, there's a number of moments where they break the fourth wall, but
Loving a fourth
they
wall break.
put the tape in. He's like, fast forward. So we're like, and then they get to the point where it's like literally at that point in the movie. He's like, so this is now. He's like, this is now. Anything after this is after now. He's like, so how do we get? It's this whole like Abbott and Costello bit, and it's great. It's
That's
so
funny.
funny.
That's funny.
Um,
So
so
that's
that's where I
funny.
say
So,
that's where I say that the movie is it's like a Monty Python where it's like it's the individual scenes which I
yeah,
appreciate
it's funny.
more than the overarching story.
The impression you gave me is that you were going to come on here and have some sort of hot take about we had a comment suggesting Spaceballs and I'm like, oh, Jordan's going to have a real hot take about a piping hot take about Spaceballs, but no, it's not really that hot.
I mean, the hot take was kind of just that in terms of a narrative story experience, I don't think it's very good.
Fair enough.
As a story, I mean, it's just kind of a Star Wars story. It's not.
Fair enough. Totally fair.
It's not really doing anything that except, but that's where I wanted to give it a fair shake and a fair chance, which is that individual jokes and individual scenes are very funny. That's why I compare it to Monty Python.
Yeah.
Where it's like the point isn't the story, the point is the scenes.
Yeah, the jokes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do the jokes work for you? Then you're gonna think it's funny. And if the objective of comedy not to make you laugh, if it's making you laugh, then it's working.
Exactly, and it made me laugh enough that overall, I'm not gonna say it's a bad movie per se.
Yeah. I mean, it's a classic for a reason.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's Spaceballs.
Yeah, man. Mel Brooks comedies, man. We're sure missing them. Someone needs to come back and make a good Mel Brooks comedy.
As I described, the Orville as my favorite Star Trek show. That's not Star Trek. This is a fun Star Wars show. That's not Star Wars.
Yeah, fair enough. Is that all you had to say about Spaceballs?
So I technically didn't break your rule.
That is true. Hey man, I don't think I did either. I almost did watch Droids though.
That's all I have to say about Spaceballs.
Okay, so my first, I don't have a ton to say about this first one, which is why Bayformers ran so long. I watched Titan A.E., which is interesting. That movie is fascinating.
I like that movie.
That's one of those cases of like, okay, the stuff around that movie, like, it's far more interesting than the movie itself, because they thought that movie was going to be a big hit, and it bombed spectacularly in a way that they just weren't expecting. And so did you know that there was a video game that was based on this that was like pretty much done, and they canceled it?
I did not,
because of how badly this movie bombed.
Interesting. And what would it have been on?
I'm not sure. You know what? Fuck it. I'm just
gonna PlayStation or Nintendo.
Tell me what you think of that idea while I quickly Google it to find out.
I mean, I don't think it would have been a very.
I want to say PlayStation, but hold on.
I was gonna say it kind of seems like a PlayStation, like
PlayStation
one of those,
and PC. Yeah.
Yeah, that checks out. Like when you say that, I picture like when the Disney would make those movie games.
Yeah.
So like the one that was based on Atlantis.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Like,
yeah, that's what I would think too.
So I don't picture it being very creative necessarily, but I can see it.
Yeah, according to this, they had a playable version of it. Like that's
really?
How far along. Yeah, that's how far along it was.
Interesting.
And the movie tanked. And
that's buried in a warehouse somewhere.
Right.
There's a copy.
Right. And there's they released like 2 books and 1 comic book, so like they really believed in this movie. Okay, here's my thing, right? Just from an animation standpoint, the stuff that is not 3D looks incredible, and it looks really good. And this movie has the unfortunate. It unfortunately came out in the year 2000, so it's on that like edge of like 3D animation doesn't look good yet, but we're trying it. So like if this had come out 5 years earlier, it would have been all 2D animated and it would have been a much better movie. Or if it had come out 5 years later, it would have been all 3D animated and it would have been a much better movie. Anytime this movie has 3D animation, it looks like shit. It looks bad. It looks straight up like
the blue guys,
the bad guys,
the energy monsters.
Yeah, they look horrible. They look horrendous.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
so boring. They're like that's my one thing about this movie is the bad guys are boring. They're so boring. Like there's nothing interesting
Um,
about them. They have no personality. Their plan seems vague and undefined. It's just boring. Boring.
it's an it's an example of a movie where it's like I understand why it didn't necessarily do very
Oh,
well,
I yeah.
much in the same way that like I understand why Treasure Planet didn't do very well, for example. But I
Interesting.
still like them.
I see the comparison to Treasure Planet. I disagree about. I think
From what I remember, they both came out at about the same
No,
time.
no, no. I absolutely. That's a totally. I thought of Treasure. In fact, I think after I finished it, Treasure Planet popped up as the next thing it recommended. So no, it's definitely like I
Yeah,
see. I understand the comparison. It's just why this doesn't work for me is different. I don't know why Treasure Planet didn't work, but for me, this doesn't work because it's too boring and serious to work
I
for
know why.
kids.
I know why Treasure Planet didn't work, but we'll touch on that after.
Um, yeah, my thing is this one. It's too boring and serious to like work for kids, and it's too simple for adults. Like there's
It's not for
nothing
kids. That's
right.
the thing. It very clearly by design it wasn't supposed to be for kids, but you're right. It's not interesting enough to be because like there's a scene where the one girl is in the shower or whatever. It's like it's definitely adult animation. Not
Oh,
you don't see
I know what you
anything,
mean.
but
Yeah,
it's
the
like it's definitely like it's meant for not necessarily adults, but like an older
yeah.
audience.
It's not. Yeah, yeah,
Whereas like a movie like Treasure Planet, for example, that's a kids movie. That's
yeah.
definitely for kids.
Very, very much. There's a scene where one of the I can't remember which of the characters he snaps Nathan Lane's neck. Um,
Yeah,
and so that's what I mean. The movie itself, but I mean in terms of how an executive would see it, they would see it as an animated movie, and they would see it as something you sell to kids. And there's just nothing in
especially
there
back
to,
then.
yeah,
Yeah,
especially back then, especially with it's a Don Bluth movie, a guy who's traditionally made shit for kids. And yeah, there wasn't really. It's to this day there really isn't like a adult animation for adults kind of, and if there is, it goes straight to streaming. Like so,
yeah.
it doesn't surprise me that this thing bombed horribly, but it's just like yeah, this is clearly his Don Bluth's attempt swing at like a big science fiction epic, but none of it's interesting. Not a second of it. And to be fair,
I mean,
it was so boring.
I like the characters, and I think that's kind of to me that's the redeeming
Yeah,
thing.
I didn't mind Matt
Like
Damon's
the thing
character.
the thing that makes me enjoy it. I like most of the characters in it. I think that the turtle guy is cute. The one with the big legs, she's like the tough as nails but lovable one.
yeah, it did nothing for
Um,
me.
the dude who's Timon as the backstabbing one, he's enjoyable. Um, I like
It's funny you said Atlantis because it does feel, and I don't know if this came out afterwards or before. I think it might have come out before. No, it might be. It might. You know what? Hold on. It might be the same year, but
um
it feels very. Oh no! It came out first. Oh shit! Oh, interesting. Because it feels like
um
derivative of Atlantis. This crew
as for
especially.
why as for why at least according funny enough according to my animation teacher from back when I was in college who worked on Treasure Planet. Um, according to him, I think he said this. Um, uh, Part of the reason why Treasure Planet didn't do so well is because it couldn't pick a lane. Was it robots? Was it aliens? Was
Yeah.
it treasure ships? Like for the common audience member, it spread itself too thin and couldn't pick a lane,
Yeah.
and that's just part of why it didn't go over as well.
If you want to learn the history of why Treasure Planet failed, a really in-depth history, Lindsay Ellis, I think I've mentioned her before, she's my go-to for all my film knowledge. She did a really good video where she explained it. It was that. Also, I think the film wasn't marketed well, and I also believe the people who directed it, Musker and Clemens, they were set up to fail. They were not set up for success with that movie, which is part of why it failed as well. But yeah, and then there's also the film itself, which has identity issues. It's not
Yeah,
selling. It's not selling toys. It doesn't have
but
anything all that sort
uh,
of.
but to bring it back around to because we were talking about Titan AE and got
Yeah, yeah,
distracted. To bring it back around to Titan AE, um, it funny you say identity crisis. It also suffers from an identity
Oh, it
crisis of
absolutely
where
does. Yeah, yeah,
it it,
absolutely.
it, it doesn't know what it wants to be or who it wants to be for,
Yeah.
and so because of that, it was never going to succeed.
And yeah, it's like trapped in the past with like this very 90s animation style in your Don Bluth because he's very much an icon of the 90s, and then it's trying to propel itself forward with 3D animation that it's too soon, and it's not working. It doesn't look good. And it's funny because you go
Yeah.
back and you read contemporary reviews and they say at the time it looked good, and I'm like, I don't think it did. I refuse to believe that it did. I refuse to believe that those energy things look good,
It's
ever
a
look good.
matter of opinion,
I
but
suppose.
I don't know.
Um,
It definitely looks stylized, I
but
suppose.
it definitely made me sad though that this was his last movie. Like this was his last movie that he did. Because I'm like, man, I miss his art style. Like, cause I love his ability to capture realism and human emotion. He animated humans so good. Like his
So
human,
well.
yeah, so well. He animated humans so well. Like his facial expressions were just so good. Like he was so
Yeah.
able of conveying emotion in his animation. Yeah, it made me sad that movie bombed him right out of the film industry. And it was very sad. But anyway, that's Titan AE. What is your second one, Jordan?
My second and final one is Ex Machina.
Ah, that's
As
another
in,
good one.
as in Deus Ex
As
Machina.
in Deus
Um,
Ex Machina.
it is a very good movie,
It's
very well made.
very good. It's basically the Turing test of the movie.
Yeah, pretty much. Um,
Well, she passes at the end, right?
I mean, yeah.
We're spoiling movies. We don't give a shit. She passes it, right? That's the point of that movie.
Well, I mean, the end
Jump
of the
right to the
movie,
end.
jump right to the end. She kills her creator, convinces the person that was doing the Turing test that she loved him, and wanted to be with him, and then leaves him stranded in the building while she escapes out into the world and is disguised, and just that's how it ends.
Yeah. So yeah, basically implying that she passed it, right? That's the
Yeah, because the point of the test was basically that you find out at a certain point. The point of the test was whether or not she could convince the main hero dude to help her escape, and then the creator was not going to let that happen. That was like the point was that he was going to stop it, but then you know he didn't, and she
yeah
escaped,
yeah.
and yeah, no,
Passing the Turing
it's
test.
she passed the Turing test.
Yeah, that movie is how I
Um,
learned what the Turing test is. Like no lie, like that movie's a really good lesson in what exactly. Jordan, what is the Turing test for those who don't know what the Turing test is?
Cold Note's version is basically the Turing test is whether a robot can convince a human that it is alive.
Yeah, basically.
Short short
Short
version
that it has feelings and emotions and whatnot. But yeah, that it's alive.
that it's alive. And I don't have a lot more to say about this movie. The acting is well done. The it It apparently had a budget of 15 million and had a box office of 37.3 million.
Yeah, it's the movie that makes me. Well, I will forgive Oscar Isaac for just about anything, including Moon Knight. The reason why I was willing
Alex
to
Gar
put up with Moon Knight, because I like him in this movie just that much.
It was written and directed by Alex Garland in his directorial debut.
Yeah. He made
Uh,
he came out with a Civil War movie recently.
and the dude that made the robot, the guy that plays him, was in Star Wars.
Yes, he was. He was General Hux in Star Wars.
No, I think he was the one that was
That's
he
Dom Hall Gleason, right?
no Oscar
Oh,
Isaac.
Oscar Isaac is Poe, but the other guy is General Hux.
Uh, Dom Hall Gleason.
Yeah,
Let's see if he
he
is.
is General Hux, and Oscar Isaac is Poe Dameron. I actually remember this time, off by memory. But no, very good movie. Very good
Uh,
movie. And it's one of those ones where it's like, yeah, I love lower budgeted movies
oh,
that spend their
he
money on
was
like one really impressive special effect. In this case, the robot.
he was Bill Weasley in the last two entries in the Harry Potter
I feel like I knew that.
thing.
I feel like I knew that.
I don't see anything about this guy being Star Wars though.
You should. Yeah, you should. I'm pretty sure it's Donald Gleason. Anyway, we can look that up later. Anything? You have anything else to say about Ex Machina?
Nope, that's all I have to say. I'm good movie.
Good
If
movie.
you want to watch a movie which is good, it's on Amazon and you can go, yeah, oh, yeah, he is in it. Oh yeah, 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 okay. And it is on Amazon and you can go watch it and then tell me what you think about it in our Discord channel, which will be in the description below.
Exactly. And so for me, my final one is I watched Second Pacific Rim, which, have you seen Second Pacific Rim?
What? What? You did rapid fire first one, and then you did your pick as the second. That's madness. Yes, I've seen it, Justin.
Oh, you have seen Second. You have seen Second Pacific Rim.
I'm
Okay.
pretty sure I have. I
Okay.
think so.
Let me start this with asking you, what did you think of Second Pacific Rim?
Not as good as the first one, from what I remember.
Interesting.
Um, I'm now struggling. Now you're making me doubt myself.
Would you like me to
Whether,
describe it to
whether,
you, and you can?
yeah, yeah. Refresh my memory.
It takes place 10 years after the last one. John
Right.
Boyega is in it. He's now the lead, and he is Idris Elba's son. And
Okay.
he is like a no good hooligan, and he meets up with a girl who has built her own single person Jaeger, which can be driven by one person.
And what's the major conflict in it?
There's a kaijus are coming back. There's a company, they're trying to make drone unmanned versions of the Jaegers, and they get corrupted by. I mean, do you care if I spoil it? Because there's kind of a
No.
twist. Um,
Uh,
turns out Charlie Day is the bad
because
guy.
because as you're describing it, I'm now becoming aware that I don't think I've seen this.
Basically, Charlie Day, he works for another company who's trying to make unmanned versions of the Jaegers, and the only returning character really from the other than I guess Charlie, well, the Japanese girl from the last one, she's now like the Japanese prime minister, whatever, and she has to sign off on using these drones, whether or not they are capable of defending against Jaegers or against
Kaiju.
kaiju. And a rogue Jaeger shows up and tries to kill her, and John Boyega defends her, and she dies in the process. And you find out that Charlie Day, when he drifted with the kaiju in the first one, that he's basically been possessed by the precursors, the people who were controlling the kaiju, and basically he's been trying to reopen the rifts to bring the kaiju back to Earth so that they can attack Mount Fuji and cause, as they put it in the movie, rare Earth elements. That's what it was. Rare Earth elements. They don't specifically say which rare Earth elements, but rare Earth elements will explode out of Mount Fuji and kill everyone on Earth and terraform the planet for these precursors.
Got it. So the precursors want vibranium. Got it.
Sort of seems that way, yeah.
Or adamantium.
I don't
Or
know.
whatever other. Or unobtainium.
So that's the basic plot. Ask your questions.
Um, it is it good?
It's all right. It's a different director. It's not Guillermo del Toro anymore. My main thing with it that I like as compared to the first one is we talked about, and when I talked about the first one, the idea of from the perspective of the Jaegers, they wouldn't be moving super slowly,
Yeah.
and it made the fight sequence agonizing. This one, it swaps perspective. So when it's from the perspective of the Jaegers, they're moving at a regular speed. And when it's from the perspective of the pilots, they're moving slowly. Or when it's from the perspective of humans on the ground, they move slowly. So like it's better that way. Also, all the action sequences are during the day, so you can see everything, and they're cool. And it's funny. They've got remember how it should have ended made fun of the fact that they had the sword, the chain sword or whatever, and they could have pulled it out sooner.
Yeah.
Well, in that movie, in the world of the Pacific Rim, they've all realized that the sword is the most useful weapon because now they all have a sword. They all are varying degrees of just looking like Gypsy Danger, and B, they all have swords. So the bad Jaeger has like a flame sword. It's like a sword. It's like the chain sword, but it's a flame.
Interesting.
It's super cool, and yeah, they all have varying degrees of swords or axes or whatever, and they all look cool. And yeah, they're easy to follow. The action sequences are easy to follow, and they're cool. And Charlie Day is the bad guy. He's super cartoony. He's having a great time as the villain, and they explain it and they justify it. It's one of those things that when you say it out loud, it sounds crazy, but when you see it in context of the movie, you're like, it's not bad. I'm not gonna say it's like as good as the first one. It's different. Like
So here's my pitch for a third one. It's like 5 years later, another rift opens, and instead of one of their stupid looking kaiju coming through, it opens up a world to the Godzilla world, and they have to fight all the Godzilla
it's
monsters.
funny you
So
say
like
that.
Rohan, Ghidorah, Godzilla, all of them. Like not necessarily the MonsterVerse version,
Yeah.
but just like a version of Godzilla that comes
Uh,
through, and they have to fight them.
that would be rad. But also, I think they might have done that in comic book form. But don't quote me on that.
Damn it!
I'm not sure. I don't actually know if that's true or not. I might have just made that up. But I
Because
think I heard that somewhere. Yeah.
because I would pay to watch
But
that
that would be
in a
dope.
movie.
That would be dope. That would be
Have
rad.
have big robot versus Godzilla. Come on, that'd be dope.
Like yeah, and it's the thing with those movies is they exist in this universe where once again like there's a scene in the early on in the movie where the girl walks in, she's like, oh my god, it's this Jaeger, oh my god, as if I'm supposed to know what these I don't fucking, you're acting as if I should know what these things are. Like they're just robots. Like they act
I
as though
guess
the
it's
Jaegers
supposed to
have
give it.
personality when they don't really.
I was gonna say, I guess it's supposed to give you this impression of like, oh, they're famous.
Yeah. Also, within the 10 years since the last one, there's like a Jaeger market that's developed, which like for Jaeger parts, which doesn't really make any sense. Like at least with the kaiju, they kind of justified it here. It's like, why would you try to build your own Jaeger? For what purpose? I guess I don't know. Um, I had another point about it. John Boyega is doing a really solid Idris Elba impression. It's pretty funny. Um, oh shit. Nope, it's gone. Clearly not important. It's fun. It's a fun movie. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. It's a better representation of what this genre is in Japan, is what I would say. So like, if you want to see like even compared to like the Godzilla movies, the MonsterVerse Godzilla movies, where like if you took this, put this in Japanese, switched all the that is another, sorry, switched all the characters to Japanese and had it be all in Japanese, I would believe this is a movie like this plays like a Godzilla movie, like an Ultraman movie, like it feels like one of those, and I mean that in a complimentary sense, more so than the other one, which has real American sensibilities to it. A lot of the characters just speak Chinese, Mandarin in this movie. Like there's a character, she's the leader of this corporation, and every time she talks to Charlie Day, she talks to him in Mandarin. And but
That
he
sounds that sounds irritating.
but he's speaking back to her in English as though she's speaking English. So he understands what she's saying, but there's no subtitles, so you have no idea what she's saying. She's just saying random words in Mandarin Chinese. Like what? Why is she doing this? Why doesn't she? And there's a scene where she does this, and then at the end of the scene, she reveals that she speaks English, and then goes back to why is she doing this? She speaks English.
It's a power move.
Yeah, I guess that's supposed to be the idea, but it's just really weird. It feels like it's once again trying to like appeal to that Chinese market, which we didn't even talk about that for the Transformers movie. Anyway,
No, we're not going to touch on that.
um, anyway,
There's not enough time. Not enough time in the day.
You would like it. I thought you had watched it.
I thought I had. You're making me question whether I have because that doesn't sound familiar, but maybe it's just so generic that it didn't stand out. I don't know. Who can really say?
But that's it. That was science fiction. That we did science fiction. We talked about some science fiction.
We did.
I saw a video
Some
though
good,
that claimed that Transformers isn't science fiction, which it's hard not to agree with. Anyway, with that, assignment time for next week. The assignment for next week. Jordan has no idea, guys. Sometimes, spoiler alert for behind the scenes, he has an idea sometimes. But
sometimes I know.
But this week he doesn't know. This week we're going to do video games.
Ooh.
But here's the kicker, okay? You don't necessarily have to do video game adaptations. If it's about video games or features video games in some way. if it's about a video game, or just as long as video games are involved. That's what you got to do.
You had to pick this after I did Ready Player One, huh?
I know. That's probably what made me think of it. There was something that made me think of it. I don't know what. But I've already Googled it though, so I know that there's a nice even. Although I've opened it up to like anything video game related. So, for example, if you wanted to say do a Scott Pilgrim, you can do that. Or if you want to do video game adaptations, there's enough that I'm pretty confident you haven't seen it. There was a pretty lengthy list I looked at. So yeah, video games. Next week is video games. Big time.
I'll think about it.
Think about it. Come back to us next week. But with that, this has been another overly long episode of the Spur of the Moment podcast. What can I say? I just like talking to this guy. Thanks once again to Trophy Smack for sponsoring this episode. You can find me on TikTok. At Justin Spurr. I do this, but shorter. And sometimes I post clips from this, but shorter. Because people like their shit short. But you can find me there. Jerome, where can they find you?
I do Twitch, Minecraft Monday or Monday adjacent. Sorry, I flubbed it. I do Twitch, Minecraft Monday and or Minecraft adjacent Monday, depending on my mood. Zethgore187.
Use take two.
Hey.
Use take two.
Use take two.
Use take two. And you can find us together. We're on Discord. I try to remember to update the link because apparently it expires weekly. It's fucking annoying. But hopefully this has an updated link. You can go join us on Discord. You can tell us what you thought about some of these movies. You can tell me how wrong I am about the Michael Bay ones if you'd like.
We can talk about Ready all the differences in Ready Player One.
If you leave a comment on this or the YouTube or anywhere, if it's interesting, we might read it out on the show, and it might turn into its own video that nobody watches.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
You can do all that. Or you can email the show at It's Justin's Business. All of those links are in the description below. We will see